an American research team at Outpost 31 in Antarctica stumbles onto an incredible, life-changing discovery. A colossal spaceship buried in the ice that supposedly crashed on Earth 100,000 years ago. A Norwegian team found it first, but somehow they all wound up dead. The ship's lone inhabitant, thought to be long dead and frozen in the ice, wakes up and goes to work. It's some sort of shape-shifting killer that can mimic any living organism down to the molecular level, and it wants to escape the Arctic and get to the rest of the world. The research team grows increasingly paranoid as they don't know who's the thing and who isn't in the 1982 body horror masterpiece, The Thing. I'm Connor Eyzaguirre,
I'm Caleb Shay.
and this is Filmgazm. Welcome to the new and improved Filmgazm podcast. The 80-episode experiment is over, and now we're starting fresh with all the knowledge we've absorbed thus far. This March will be our 5-year anniversary. We figured it was time to refocus what we wanted this podcast to be, prioritize the weird shit, and base the next phase of the show around the four corners of genre movies: horror, action, sci-fi, and fantasy. Every film we talk about on the Wednesday main show will be one of those four genres. We'll continue doing first thoughts on Mondays whenever there's a new release we want to talk about. And some Fridays, we'll have Filmgazm bonus episodes whenever we feel like doing a countdown, a draft, a filmmaker spotlight, or some other wacky fun shit we haven't thought of yet. So, man, what do you think of the new direction of the show?
I'm excited. I think issues we've had is kind of like wanting to do too much.
Yeah.
Add too much to our plates because I mean, at the end of the day, we're not this. We all have jobs outside of this. We all have things we gotta do outside of this. So we just don't have the time. Time's always your greatest enemy in life, especially as you get older. Um, And so I think scaling it down to a consistency of just the Wednesday and kind of going back to the roots of what we want to do with this, where we focus on genre, something that to this day, I mean, when this comes out, now as we're recording, when this comes out, it'll be 2024, you know, genre that still kind of gets like kind of not the recognition it really deserves, except in very rare cases. And I'm saying like in case of like Lord of the Rings. I only think that because I know you guys recently did a draft on that, so that one just what popped in my head. Um, but kind of going back to those roots, having just a consistent Wednesday show and then Monday and Friday just being like when we want. And that's the thing I think is going to help us out. Both keep it fun, like we're not getting bogged down and this is work. We already have that to worry about in our personal life. Um, but it's going to keep it fun, it's going to keep it fresh, and I think be a good thing for us going forward.
Yeah, so do I. I want to basically turn the Wednesday show into a highly researched, thoroughly prepared, epic show every week. And I think we all agree the genre films are the most fun to talk about, the most fun to research, always have a cool story behind them. And I just think that's where we need to be. I think that's a good place to be for this show. And I'm excited to kind of start fresh. This is episode 1 of this next phase of what we've been doing. So, we're starting wiping the slate clean here and just kind of going forward, taking it week by week, picking the movies more from just like, oh, that sounds fun, as opposed to we have to do this week because of that. It's more just like, let's fucking do, you know, fucking The Thing. Why not? Let's do that. Next week it could be something else crazy. And next week's gonna be fun. They're all gonna be fun. And that's what I want to do.
Yeah, agreed. I'm looking forward next week. I know you and me have been having to do not that we weren't going to do it anyway. This is every like film lovers in time where you cram in the last of the year's films to give you guys a hint of what we're doing. So we were already going to do that anyway, but now obviously it's the impetus for what we're doing next week. So it's like, oh shit, let me make sure I get what I can in
Yeah.
um before we do that episode.
Yeah.
But yeah, it allows more freedom, more fun. Especially if it sounds like we're not going to worry about anniversaries as much. Not that those aren't fun to do, but just a lot more freedom with what we put on the schedule. Um,
Yeah.
going forward.
And of course, we'll tie Wednesday into, releases sometimes. Like, when Dune Part 2 comes out, I'm sure we'll end up doing Villeneuve's first Dune film. I know when Ghostbusters Frozen Empire comes out, we're going to do a Ghostbusters film of some kind. So that stuff will still happen. But largely it's going to be just, what do you feel like doing next week? I don't know. Let's do this fucking Rodriguez movie. All right, sure. It's going to be that for the most part, which is cool because that's what we were doing when we first started this back in 2019. It was just me for a while, and then Austin came in, and we just kind of picked them week by week, like, oh, that'd be fun to talk about, or oh, I've never seen that, or oh, this is cool, and I miss that. I feel like we've gotten a little too, I don't know, bogged down in the semantics, and I want to kind of get away from that and just go back to this being a weekly fun thing I get to do with my friends.
Yeah, especially when like with stuff that we both kind of talked about offline, but the year wasn't kind to you and me,
No,
or to or for various different reasons that I really don't want to share on recording. No offense to any fans we have out there, but my friends know, and that's all that fucking matters. So friends and family know, that's all you need to know. And that's a direct shot at those of you who feel the need to know everything Scream 7 fans.
oh boy.
Um, yeah. If you know, you know what I'm referencing.
There's one we're
Um,
not going to be able to do an anniversary episode on. Thank you so much. God damn it.
yeah, that was a nice shade to those on Twitter who felt the need to attack a director for no good reason. Um, but it was a rough year in a way, and the podcast should feel like an escape. Just like when I watch films, it's an escape, good or bad, when it comes to a film. Sometimes the bad films that I don't enjoy can be escapes in their own interesting ways. Um, but just like when I watch a film or when I play a game or, I'm, reading my comics or books or whatever, or listen to my music, it's an escape. And that's what the podcast should feel like, a fun thing that lets me escape my reality. I have hopes 2024 will be a better year for me. Obviously there's a very big life change. Again, I'm not sharing on here, about it, big life change that's kind of happening for me in a job related sort of way that, will obviously kind of rack my nervousness up. But again, that's where we're coming to. This will be my escape and fun as it should be.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I've been in a transitional period for a while now, still kind of unsure of what I want to do in life. And I need, it's nice to have some assurance of something to look forward to. And that's what I'm viewing this as is, oh, I get to talk about this week, or I get to talk about that this week, while I can just ignore the life shit that's constantly swirling around me for a couple hours.
Yeah.
No. Well, with that, we wanted to start things off with one of our collective favorites, a film that's universally beloved by the horror community and has so much to say. It didn't take us long to choose The Thing, the eighth film directed by John Carpenter, and as Carpenter calls it, his strongest movie. So before we get into it, what's your history with The Thing? How did this movie first come into your life?
Oh, dude, this was like when I was getting into horror films, this was just the one you always heard about, right? The Thing was like one of those heavy hitters you hear about, like, oh, you want to see this? My dad was a fan of it. My dad hyped it up to me, and he's like, but it was with the caveat of like, yeah, wait till you're older because of the violence in the movie. Um, the gore and the effects and stuff like that, but so it's always that like mini horror films you have when you're first getting into it, and you have those heavy hitters you hear about. It was there, and it was there before I really knew anything about John Carpenter, his style, his history as a director. I just heard about like, oh, this is this really good film with Kurt Russell, and it's a really good movie. You're like it, you like horror. That when I did finally get the chance to watch it, I think we rented it or like it was on TV, and my dad was like, "Okay, you know what? You're old enough. You're good. Let's watch it." I instantly fell in love. Instantly fell in love with it, and it was around the time I was discovering Carpenter in general. So I was looking into Halloween, and he's came from New York. I saw him I was really starting to kind of dig into him, and I just as soon as I watched this, I fuck. It was just like a love at first sight. What a movie! It was just like, oh my God, this is awesome. What is this movie? And I haven't looked back. I very much agree with Carpenter's statement. I do think it's his strongest film, and a lot of people agree. I mean, this is for a lot of people considered his best film, more so than Halloween. Um, and it. it's hard to pick from this era because like to me 70s and 80s is like just peak Carpenter. Like he just was hitting every single time. Um, so it's a in a strong sea of films. This one has always kind of stood out in the pack, and again, it's crazy because that sea is strong. You know, I mean, you got They Live, you got The Fog, you got Halloween, I saw on Precinct 13, Escape from New York, Big Trouble in Little China. Like, you know, the hits just kept on coming. But this, I see why he says that, and I get why it has the status it has, and thankfully has gained the status it has. As well, we'll get into. I'll save it for when we get into the history of this film. But for those who know about its initial release and reception,
Oh yeah. Fuck you, E.T., but we'll get to that. Um,
I'll
yeah,
say it. More people talk about the thing than E.T. I'll say it. No offense to Spielberg. Just saying.
uh, yeah, The Thing. This is, I believe it's the highest rated horror movie on Letterboxd, which is amazing. Uh, and well deserved. Um, I saw this movie for the first time when I was about 11 or 12. I watched it with my parents, who were gradually starting to introduce me to more mature stuff. And they got their VHS and they put it in the player. We started watching The Thing, and I was kind of like, "All right, this is kind of boring." I was 11. I didn't know. I didn't know what ambiance was. I didn't know that the dog wasn't a dog. I was just like, why is this so cool? And then shit started happening. And I remember my mom immediately throwing her hand on my face. So I couldn't see the dog ripped open. And I watched most of the thing's best scenes through my mom's hand because she
Awesome.
realized very quickly he's too young for this. But instead of turning it off or telling me to leave, she just put her hand over my head and they kept watching it. So So I heard a lot of the nightmarish noises of the thing, and my imagination created a much worse situation than what was happening on screen, which did not help the nightmares. So I'm sure later on I found it on my own and I watched it and I was like, oh, this is fucking awesome. And that was probably around the time that my uncle Sean was kind of getting me into Carpenter. He showed me Escape from New York and Assault on Precinct 13 and They Live. And I was like, this guy fucking rocks. And I never left that stance. I still think Carpenter is one of the greatest filmmakers America's ever produced. Never got his due to this day. Deserves like praise on the same level as guys like Spielberg and Coppola and Scorsese, but never got it.
I stand by the fact that as a horror director, he is rightfully praised. He has gotten all the love and attention he deserves in horror. On a mainstream side of things, if you will, and like yes, your bigger scope, a casual audience,
No.
he is so underappreciated. And you could make that argument that the '90s and 2000s weren't as kind to him directing wise.
Yeah.
I blame a lot more of the studio system around that time and how they were treating him. And I'm sorry, I don't know any director that has like a flawless track record. And yes, I know people are gonna come at me at Tarantino, even him. Um, sorry, guys, not a single director. All right, now moving on. Um,
I will I will say there is one director who does have a completely flawless theatrical run, and that is Kinka Usher.
did he do one movie?
He directed Mystery Men and then he bounced. So yes.
Okay, multiple film directors here. Um, he did it and he left. Uh, no, they very rarely have perfect track records. Okay, again, you look at what he came out with in the '70s and what he came out with in the '80s. Yes, this guy needs to be on the same level of people like Tarantino and Spielberg and Scorsese.
What puts Carpenter like, above the rest for me really is like when he hit, like for any filmmaker in the 80s to make a movie like The Thing, that could define their entire career. Like that's it. But he has a lot of those. He's got several movies that are career defining and he kept going. Like the guy just he had an eye, and not just for
Yeah.
not just for
And
filmmaking, but for music, for casting, for everything. The guy was just on point. And I say was because he's all but retired from filmmaking. He's just being a rock star now.
yeah, and Like, and I'll say it for those who, if you know, so keep furthering this argument that he needs to be rightfully much more praised than he is. And granted, I know Carpenter himself probably at this point doesn't really care because, like I say, he's retired, he's focused on music.
Yeah.
Still fun to talk about though. And I do get Carpenter's stance a lot when I hear him in interviews. Like people can say it's grumpy, but I get where he's coming from in a lot of his interviews and his stance on stuff. I understand.
Yeah, his whole
Um,
career from the like from Hollywood has basically been what have you done for me lately? And that's such horseshit. A guy who made films like that should get, to be able to write his own ticket in Hollywood, but they just consistently kept screwing him. And I totally get why he hates the whole industry. Like I would too if I'd been, if I had so many opportunities ripped away from me just because, I was an easy mark or so they thought.
Yeah, and then you add in the fact that he lost Deborah Hill, he was very close to. A lot of people don't realize how good of friends they were. I believe they were dating at one point. Um, they were very close. He lost her. That hurt him a lot more. I think people realize that he did just get to the point, like you said, where he was like, you know what, I have the clout enough. He's still making paychecks off of like off his films from the 70s and 80s, especially Halloween. He's good. Um, but defer like this whole thing that like he should be on the same discussion. Okay, let's take someone like Spielberg. As far as I'm concerned, Spielberg's heyday was the 80s and the 90s, and after that, I haven't really given a whole lot of shit about a lot of his recent films. And again, and not saying he's done bad films at all, but I do think that once Spielberg focused on chasing that Oscar high constantly, I wasn't getting as entertaining films from him. So it's like, okay, you have someone like Spielberg who is still working, but I haven't really liked his recent output. Whereas Carpenter, I like most of his output.
See, that's how I felt about Scorsese until this past year with Killers of the Flower Moon, and then I'm like, okay, this guy's still got something to say. So I'm hoping that we
Mm,
get a little bit more of a, more exciting films from him. I'd love
yeah,
to see
like I said,
Carpenter.
it's not me.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's not. It's sorry. It's not me trying to saying these directors are bad. Like, don't come at me with pitchforks, people. I'm not saying I like Spielberg still. Okay, he has his status for a reason. I'm just saying like it's just it's an injustice to me because like Carpenter should be on that level when he has probably the same type of like career path that these guys have, where they had their heyday, and then the recent output isn't as good to me. They get lucky, like I said, Scorsese came make strong with Killers of the Flower Moon, and I did quite enjoy that. Um, but they're these directors we rightfully praise, they're just as hit and miss. Carpenter had his heyday. He got hit and miss for a bit, yes. And then he just said, hey, I'm done and retired on out.
Yeah. And like you said, no one's got a flawless run, but to me, like when you hit like Carpenter hits, you've entered the conversation. And I think the mainstream like favorites list should include John Carpenter. Uh, but
I absolutely always believe that.
well, so we have some discussion questions. Uh, this is already going so well. My question to you: The Thing is widely considered to be one of the greatest horror remakes of all time. So much so that a lot of people don't actually know this is a remake. So, in your opinion, what are some other incredible or at least acceptable horror remakes?
Ooh, that's a good one. David Cronenberg's The Fly.
Yeah, that's kind of where
Um,
I would go to first. Like
is
The Fly and The Thing are probably the
for
apex of horror remakes.
Yeah, I know a lot of people would say The Blob from the 80s. I have not seen the 80s Blob, so I cannot comment on that one myself. That's why I'm not going to say it. One I don't think people think of enough, and it's from that era that everyone hated so much, the 2000s horror remake craze. And I'm saying this as someone who has been a lifelong fan of Texas Chainsaw Massacre and thinks the original is the greatest horror film ever made. But the remake is goddamn good, and I do think it enters conversation. I think the remake is a solid fucking movie that comes actually really fucking close. It comes close.
Hmm. Yeah, I know you have a lot of fervor for that one, and it is a fun watch. It's a good double feature. 74 and 2003. When you make a movie that great in 1974, you could make a million sequels. Nothing's going to top that shit. But there are some. That's one that does come close.
It come and one to me, what a lot of these do, they understand what made the original great or why people love it. And obviously you can kind of, in the case of The Fly and Thing for No Reward, you can have your opinion because it's from a very different era of film, obviously. But those people in Texas Chainsaw Massacre, like they honored what made those original films work, but then found a way to update that for an at the time modern audience without being disrespectful, without saying, well, we can do it better. It was no, they did it. How do we modernize this for today audience by still honoring it? One thing that like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake did was they got Daniel Poor, who had done the cinematography for the original film. He did the cinematography for the remake as well.
That's
A lot
fucking
of people don't know that they've got the same cinema. Yeah, they got the same cinematographer, which is why the remake actually looks so goddamn good. Because even he was like, well, and he talked about on I think the movie crypt. Well, he was like, the biggest challenge was like, how do I differentiate this from the original? Like, I don't want to do the same thing. I need to make it different, and they figured it out. Um, that's I think when like remakes really work. There
yeah.
is something that can be said for a remake that does try to do things differently, and because obviously Fly and Thing are quite different from the original films. But again, even though they go a different route, they were made by filmmakers that loved that original film and said, how can we do this different without, desecrating the original? That same mindset's still there. They just figured out how to make it different in a way that still works.
I think the biggest thing that sets those kinds of remakes apart from like your, Nightmare on Elm Street 2010s is you have somebody who is a fan of the film they're adapting. You need that. You need somebody behind the chair who cares about where this is coming from. Like Carpenter, The Thing from Another World is one of his favorite movies. He loves that movie to death. And when
Mhm.
he got this job, he was like, I am so excited to go back to the roots of this story and tell my own version. That's what you want. That's how these movies end up being amazing. So yeah, I think,
Oh,
the fandom is paramount.
yeah, another one from the 2000. And look, for we have our fans. I am 31 years old. I was a teenager in this time, so yes, I have a little bit more love than most people for this era because it's what I grew up on. Okay, sorry, it is what it is. Um, but the Hills Have Eyes remake, Alexandra Aja did a fucking phenomenal. That's another one that comes. Actually, I'll say it, and it's probably because I saw the remake first. I do think the remake's better. I do. I know. I love Russ Craven. I do, but I do think the remake's better. But again, Audra was a fan. They worked with Wes Craven. It's a known fact he was a producer on that in the Last House remake. He was heavily involved with. Um, so they were still running things by him. He told them, "Hey, make it yours, make it your movie." But they were so very respectful and stuff about making sure he was still involved and still there. He gave him the go ahead, "Hey, make your movie," and they made a fucking good film out of it. Like the remake of Hills of Eyes fucking kicks ass, man. Like it goes, I mean, it's very of its era, but it goes for your jugular and doesn't stop until the credits roll. I fucking love that remake.
Yeah, it's been a while since I saw the remake, and I'm surprised that in 5 years of podcasting, we never touched The Hills Have Eyes. Like we came close.
I'll have to- oh yeah, we did. We'll have to rectify that one day because I actually really fucking love that remake.
Yeah. Um, one horror remake that I really like that I feel like does not get enough credit is the 1999 remake of House on Haunted Hill.
I
Uh,
actually quite enjoy that one.
that movie's creepy as shit, and it takes the original movie, which I thought was kind of goofy, and flips it. In the original movie, they're all led to believe this is real, but the twist is it's fake. And in the remake, they're all led to believe it's fake, but the twist is it's real. And I thought that was
Mm.
very clever. And I love the Jeffrey Rush's nods to Vincent Price. The ghosts are terrifying. Jeffrey Combs is a freaky villain in that movie. Like it works. I have a lot of love for that movie. I also love it. It's like the one movie my mother will never watch because the ghosts scared her so bad back in '99. She has yet to watch that movie again.
Oh, dude, that was when like for some reason they kept making the ghost do that weird effect in all the horror films that were coming out. Like Fear.com
Oh,
did it.
freaky.
That one did it. Like, yeah. Um, yeah, no, I've always actually really liked that remake. I've quite enjoyed it. It's just so over the top, campy and like goofy and like frightening and like all at once. It's like it just shouldn't work, but it does.
That scene
Um,
where like one of the characters is like looking through the basement and she sees like the ghosts of the doctors doing surgery through the camera, but she can't see it with the naked
and then
eye.
they look
They all look at her. my God. Just talking about it. I
Uh,
got
I used to
goosebumps.
that used to freak me out, man. One, you're not going to grade me because I know you don't even like the franchise as a remake of, and a lot of fans like to shit on it. But actually, I'll say it. I like the Friday 13th remake. All the issues that like longtime fans had of it, I'm like, shut the hell up. The whole thing with Trent being a douchebag, yeah, it's not the first douchebag we've had in the movie series. Let's be honest. And I still laugh hysterically at like the dumb comments that come out during his sex scene. Like they're fucking so dumb and hysterical. The whole thing about Jason having tunnels, I'm like, who gives a shit? Like, it's not the most outlandish thing this franchise has done. The thing where like people were like, oh, well, he want to keep someone captive. I'm like, this franchise has already established that if they remind him of his mother, he doesn't harm them. So yes, that makes sense too. Like I just refute all the stuff that people say. I'm like, no, it's a fucking Friday 13th film that works.
My problem with Friday the 13th, 2009 is that it makes no fucking sense whatsoever. It opens,
None of the movies do.
yeah, but this especially is like going out of its way to just completely ignore important shit. Like it opens with Pamela getting decapitated because she's avenging the death of her son Jason. You know, we get that. She gets decapitated, and who should fucking wander out of the woods but Jason Voorhees? He's not dead.
Well, I mean, it's the same. It's the same thing in the original when like they made the sequel and they were like, "Wait, Jason's dead," and he went, "No one's gonna give a shit."
Yeah, but this
And so
wasn't
they
the
just
sequel.
went
This
with
was
it.
the opening 10 minutes of the movie. Like her whole motivation makes no sense if her baby boy is in the woods waiting for her.
Well, she probably didn't know he was alive.
So Jason, like 5-year-old Jason's just been living by himself as a
Yep.
baby in the woods.
Yes.
You don't see a problem with this?
No, because it's a fucking horror film about some deformed kid that was able to survive in the woods and then just mercilessly slaughter people.
Whatever. I don't have the same blind love for Friday the 13th as you do. I don't really like any of them,
No,
to be honest.
it's called I just want him to kill people, and that's what I get. I want to watch douchebags party it up, have sex, and then get slaughtered.
Good for you. You got like what, 12 of them? Yeah.
12 with now it being out of court, potential for a 13th because it seems like Sean Cunningham is smelling the dollar signs because of the TV show, and he's like, oh wait, I can make money if I just come out with a movie. Yeah, yeah, no shit.
It's the 13th one. It better be fucking spectacular. Uh,
They have these there's the Never Hike Alone films on YouTube, and those are actually really fucking good. They're fan films, but they're really good.
that's cool. All right, the last horror remake I want to spotlight is 2020's The Invisible Man.
Oh yeah, that was an exceptional one.
Yeah, the last real big hit at theaters before COVID knocked out the film industry for a while. Uh, what a fantastic psychological thriller, and just a movie that really builds atmosphere and tension in scenes he might not even be in, but you just feel that he's there. That was so smart.
Well,
Um, yeah,
and James Wan did the smart thing of framing shots as if there's always two people in the shot. Because he talked about that. He said if you pay attention, he frames so many of his shots to look like there could be two people in it to add to what you're talking about, to give you that sense of like, is he there? Once you get the reveal that he's always there. So he purposely framed shots in a way to pull that effect off.
did you say James Wan?
Did I say James label now? God damn it.
Just just helping out.
Thanks. I thought I said Leywardell, but yeah, Leywardell, my bad. He purposely frame shots that way, to always make it seem like he's there. So then you're on the edge of like, oh shit, is he there? Is he not there?
Yeah. Well, the original Invisible Man, I think, is still a great thriller and just a very fun lesson in like, a man's descent into madness. We did it on one of our anniversary episodes a few months ago, and just had a blast talking about that movie. The remake isn't a shot for shot. It's something new. It's our hero is a abuse survivor trying to move past her psychotic ex who faked his own death just to screw with her again. It's it's really twisted. It's got one of the greatest shock moments in recent horror when, the dinner
Oh,
scene.
the knife scene?
Yeah,
Yeah.
fuck. No.
Well, and are shocking that like Leywardell, a guy came up with this like storyline and it didn't. feel disingenuous or anything. Like it was a very timely thing that he pulled off really well. But again, it's like we talked about, it was a good remake because he's a fan that said, how do I modernize this for today? Because we can't. I remember reading an interview, he was like, yeah, we can't just have him be a mad scientist. That's not going to work in 2020 when it came out. It's
Yep.
like no one's going to believe that. We'll get laughed at.
Yeah, I thought the direction he took, it made it seem real. Like that could happen. Some nut job with, some skills in optics could conceivably make something like that. Like that doesn't sound insane anymore, which is even scarier.
Mhm.
The Invisible Man's the
Yeah,
only
no,
one of the original Universal monsters who could fucking exist.
yeah, and you know what's crazy about that remake? That was after like Universal made the big deal about like we are not making these horror films because it doesn't make money at the box office, and like their Mummy action film that didn't star Brendan Fraser
Ugh.
flopped, but then the horror film was a huge hit before COVID took over. Um, so it was like peace de la resistance. Um, but because yeah, again, like the key ingredients of this is you get filmmakers that are fans or at least care, even if they can kind of say like, look, the original film doesn't hold up, but we can do something with this. I think that's why I'm so excited for Robert Eggers' Nosferatu coming out December of 2024.
Yeah.
He is very clear he's a fan of the original film, which is a great film. I love Nosferatu. So I know, okay, I already like his work, his three films prior to this. More people should have seen The Northman, just saying. Um, but he's a fan. So I'm like, okay, I like his stuff. He is clearly a fan. This is gonna be something special when it comes out. And based off the set photos they've released so far, it's gonna be something really fucking special.
It really
Because the
is.
opposite end of that, yeah, the opposite side of that, you mentioned it with Nightmare, right? Is when you do get those remakes like Nightmare on Elm Street 2010, where they didn't give a shit. It was like, it's a very known fact that they did not get Craven's input on that movie. They were like, no, we can do it. It's fine. We don't need his input. He even talked about how pissed off he was about that because it's fucking Nightmare on Elm Street. Um, and then we saw in the final product what happens when you get those people that just they don't care. It's just, hey, we're going to do it and we're going to do it better. It's like, well, no, you're not with that attitude, and no one's going to care.
Yeah, I agree. Felt the same way about the 2015 Poltergeist remake. God, what a train wreck that was.
Oh God. I
Um,
sat through that thing.
I'm super psyched about Nosferatu though. The only question I've got in my head is like, did that week, do we do Murnau or do we do Herzog? I don't know.
Oh, that's tough because I've seen both and they're both really, really good.
Yeah. My right now I'm leaning towards Herzog because I haven't seen that yet and I'd like an excuse.
Yeah. I mean, at least now we're not debating between that or the Neutron and Poe movie because I got taken off the slot.
Yeah, that sucks. Well, oh, that was a good discussion there.
Yes. And I also have a question. So that's what we do now. Kidding. Uh, no, mine is in relation to the fact that there's like three versions of this film, but only one's really stood the test of time. This is no offense, like the Howard Hawks original. Um, why do you think Carpenter's is the one that has like stood the test of time? Why do you think he's the one that's gotten this the best and made the film that stood the test of time for the era two?
Two words. Rob Bottin. That guy had a
Fucking
vision of,
mountain of a man.
yeah,
Jesus.
that huge dude understood the fucking assignment. So in the 50s, like the original story, Who Goes There, which we're going to talk about in a minute here, is all about a biological organism that can mimic anything it touches. That was the original idea. The 50s version decided, no, we want Frankenstein and communism. So obviously, that kind of creature was pretty impossible to put on camera in the 50s. The 80s roll around. Carpenter wants to go back to basics. He wants to take the story and make that. Rob Bottin comes along and is like, all right, let me show you some sketches. And the idea that this thing could be anything, it could make any kind of organic freak it needed for the moment. And they took that to heart and they gave us something we had never seen before. This was freakish body horror, unlike anything that had come out to that point. To the like, it was up to the point where like you told me, the actors involved had trouble getting work afterwards because they were so associated with this freaky movie. And that's why this one stands the test of times, because it's still, what, 40, 50, 40 years later, 40 something years later,
Yeah,
still
for
look,
something.
still looks incredible. It's the gold standard. The 2011 one decided to nix the practical effects
We'll
and
get into that.
douse it in shitty CGI, and the product speaks for itself. I've seen that shit 100 times. I saw that shit on the CW. It doesn't look good. It looks cheap. Carpenter looks like they tried. They had a vision. They decided to make it happen using practical effects and people who cared. And that's why this works. That's why it still works. If they do another one,
I,
and I don't see them ever, I don't see anybody else ever getting this right.
I'm with you. I think it's a Robert team for sure. Like those effects, Dan. It is. There's a reason this film is known for its practical effects above all else.
Yeah.
I'm sure David Cronenberg was like hard the whole movie. Like, why haven't I done any of this yet?
You show me another movie where a guy has a heart attack, another guy's defibbing him, his chest opens up, eats the other guy's arms, then his head peels off and grows spider legs and walks around. You show me another movie anywhere that gives me anything remotely close to that, as good as it looks in this.
Yeah, fair enough. I was going to say thing 2011, but it just doesn't look as good. Uh, but the other thing I want to mention, I think that's helped make it to the test of time is the Carpenter of it all, and that is I know I'm talking about the score because it's mostly Ennio Morricone who, but Carpenter I know did some stuff himself to like pad it out a bit better because
Mhm.
I know he talked about that on the behind the scenes. Um, I'm talking about like the characters and the paranoia, something that is supposed to be apparently evident in the story that only this one film ever got right. You feel the paranoia, you feel the distrust, you actually feel like, oh shit, who could it be? You never feel that in the other versions of this film.
Nope. Yeah, I love that. And that comes a lot out of Bill Lancaster's screenplay, which we'll talk about as well. But obviously, you know, Carpenter shot it in a way where like we don't know. I've seen this movie 100 times. There's times where I fucking forget. Like who here is the thing. I forget sometimes. And it just
What
adds.
what was like I love watching on rewatches and trying to see like when people get infected because sometimes they smartly don't always show you when someone gets infected. So you're just like, well, wait, like when the scene when I think it's Knowles gets it when they're tied to the chair. I remember sitting there going, when the fuck did he get like infected? I'm like, I don't recall. I was like, but then again, that's why it works because something that's I think more an issue with today's filmmaking. Them need to show. Looking at you, extras believer, show everything so the audience isn't even remotely confused. This film says no, don't show everything. We need them to be as paranoid as the characters are. We need them to be wondering who the fuck it could be. So don't show when everyone gets infected. Just sit there, have them go, who the hell is it now?
Yeah. Well, Carpenter intended this to be part one of a thematic trilogy that he did called the Apocalypse Trilogy, followed by Prince of Darkness and In the Mouth of Madness. And this was his take on, like, as he said in the documentary we watched, like the the end of the world comes from within. There's this bleak aspect to the film where like it feels like the end of days. It really does feel like they lost. And you can't destroy this thing. Like you can't beat something this powerful. And that vibe is all over this movie. This does not have a happy ending. This is not a Hollywood glamorizing, happy ending movie. And I think that's why a big part of why it failed, because people were like, that's it? What? Like, in 1982, people were like,
They
that's fucking depressing.
right, they both die. Shit.
Yeah. And this thing probably gets away. Yeah. I mean, they did a video
Yeah.
game sequel
Whoever
where, hmm?
I was like, whoever got infected, that's the person that I got probably rescued and the thing got out of the Antarctic.
Yeah, they did a video game sequel on the PlayStation 2 that I have, but I haven't played it yet, where apparently it
Heard
is
really good.
apparently McCready was the thing. Yeah. Cool shit. But yeah, it's this is unique. This is a snapshot in time kind of movie where it had the right director, the right screenwriter, the right cast, the right special effects guy, the right cinematographer, and everything worked the way it was supposed to. And we got the product that everybody wanted to make. And that does not
Mm,
happen a lot in Hollywood. There's always some shit that goes down where it's somebody had to, work with the second choice or something. But this was what it was supposed to be. And it's
mm.
the I'd argue that of all the films Carpenter's made, this is the one he's going to be remembered for. Specifically him.
I'd make the argument too.
Yeah.
I'd make that argument too. This would be the one. I know a lot of people want to go to Halloween, but I think because of the franchise that became,
Yeah.
it's more known as a franchise now. And again, I personally, I mean, the originals in my when I rank that franchise, always in my top of the franchise is the original.
Yeah.
And I do think it's a good Carpenter film. But the thing, they've had two other shots at it. I mean, the one prior, obviously the very original, and then the 2011 one. But this one has always been better for everyone. This is the one that has stood the test of time.
Well, I definitely think that with Halloween, Michael Myers has outlasted Carpenter's involvement with the franchise. Like the first one's very much his, the second one kind of, the third one kind of, but then it's just like it's not his anymore. The Thing is wholly
Yeah,
his.
yes. Yeah, about so he was. I mean, he was pretty much checked out mentally for two and three. Well, two. He was a little bit back on board with three and what he wanted to do with it. But then after that, he was like just completely gone and just like as he says, I hold my hand out and a check appears. So, hey, good for him.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, I'd consider it a personal achievement if I created something as iconic as Michael Myers and then just let it ride.
but right, and you still get like in his case, great royalty check still on that.
Yeah.
Um,
Every time you buy a silver shamrock novelty thing from Spirit Halloween, he gets a piece.
yes, and then he smartly got involved with the recent. Well, he was the best parts of this recent trilogy. Um, David Gordon Green, you were not. Uh,
You just got
so he's
uninvited to the
getting money
barbecue,
from that.
Dave.
Yeah, you're not in the horror family barbecue anymore, Dave. It's okay. Um, but yeah, no, I think this will be what he is remember for. I do agree with a lot of people that I do think this is hands down his masterpiece. I very much think it's masterpiece. Full disclosure, I actually have not seen the other two films in this thematic trilogy, but I'm going to fix that because when his birthday comes around, guess who does a sale every year? Screen Factory. And guess who has those two films still? Screen Factory. So I'm just going to fucking blind buy them and get those watched.
I got to pick up In the Mouth of Madness, but I did find Prince of Darkness at a thrift store, so that was exciting. Um, they're both okay. I think they warrant repeated viewings. I've only seen both once, so I want to give. I meant to do Prince of Darkness on the podcast last year, but we decided to change things up. So this year we'll probably Prince of Darkness will happen this year.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to watching both. Those are the last two kind of my blind spot for like his heyday years. After that, like obviously I have not seen a lot of his like 90s and 2000 stuff mostly because I just don't want to solely legacy.
I think
I've
for
seen
me,
Ghosts of Mars more than I should.
I need to see vampires, and I need to see. He did a TV movie in the 70s called Someone's Watching Me. I got to see that. And Memoirs of an Invisible Man. I think that would be that would be the end of my Carpenter adventure.
Yeah, and The Ward, if you haven't seen that yet, the
I
film he
have
did with
seen
Amber
that. That
Heard
was
before
that
all
was
the
that was
went out.
horseshit. The Ward was horseshit. I
Fair
think
enough.
I think I opened my review of that with "Oh, how the mighty have fallen."
God.
Like I can't believe this is the same guy. Oh, well, anyway. All right, let's get into the nitty gritty of this podcast. So, our main sources for the film's production history are featurettes and interviews that come from the Shout Factory 4K and Blu ray edition of The Thing, as well as the 1998 documentary The Thing Terror Takes Shape, also available on that Blu ray and on YouTube in its entirety. I was very happy when I found out about that doc. It was very helpful. I think, for me, the, I think, I need to see Vampires. Like, I can't believe this is the same guy. Oh, well, anyway. So, our main sources for the film's production history are featurettes and interviews that come from the Shout Factory 4K and Blu ray edition of The Thing, as well as the 1998 documentary The Thing Terror Takes Shape, also available on that Blu ray and on YouTube in its entirety. It was very helpful.
Super helpful.
So The Thing began life as the novella Who Goes There by John W. Campbell Jr., which was first published in the August 1938 issue of Astounding Science Fiction magazine under Campbell's pen name Don A. Stewart. This dude in 1938 was conceiving of a story like this. That's amazing to me. That predates the Cold
Hmm.
War. That predates World War II. Like that's
Yeah, this like this the invisible enemy type of storyline that didn't even really gain traction until the Cold War.
yeah, because now everyone was like, better read than dead and all that shit. But I mean, this guy was ahead of his time. I That's amazing to me. Uh, an extended novel-length version of the story titled Frozen Hell was published in 2019 after it was discovered among some of Campbell's papers and notes. So there's a longer version of this. I'd love to get a hold of that.
It is luckily easy to purchase. I looked on Amazon. It's rarely available. It's only got a print or anything. You can get a paperback still,
I intend
thankfully.
I intend to once I have money.
I know. I'm just letting you know it is not out of print. Luckily, it is readily available.
And
The Frozen Help.
if you do want to read Who Goes There, you can find it if you just Google Who Goes There by John Campbell. The full story is available free online. That's how I read it. And I hate to say it, but it's not that great. Um, and there's just a lot of characters. It's mostly them just kind of like, well, maybe this creature can read minds. Well, maybe this creature can mimic genetic material. Like it's all them kind of just guessing. They don't really know anything about the creature, but they're on point every time with those guesses. Uh, yeah, it's about 76 pages long, and it could have been 30.
All right. Well, I did not have time to read it, so I'll if I ever do, I'll just do the Frozen Hell and hope that that's a better edition since it's more fleshed out.
Probably was. Probably was.
But yeah. I mean, it sounds like it was a victim of its time in that regard. When it came out, and I remember when I was doing the bonus features, they kind of said the same thing with when they were doing the script for the '80s thing. They were kind of like, yeah, it's not a very good story, but the idea of what's there is good to make something out of.
I found that hilarious, especially coming from Bill Lancaster, who's like, yeah, the story's not great, but I found something in there, so I was able to make this. And I'm thinking, like, you're hired to adapt a story you don't even care for. How do you find this in that? Like that's admirable.
Mhm. No, it's yeah, it shows you sometimes like power of creativity and why, we had a certain two strikes this year because AI would have just fucking regurgitated this shit. But a human was like able to be like, not a very good story, but there's something here I can do with this and make the script that they make
Yeah,
out of it.
absolutely. So the story was first adapted in 1951 as the film The Thing from Another World. The story was then reprinted with this title to try to sell more versions of that story. It was directed by Christian Nyby, I believe, with some considerable help from Howard Hawks, who produced it and also snuck in from time to time to film it, but due to some uh, union shit, could not officially direct the movie. So he just would sneak in and be like, let me show you how to hold the camera for the whole day.
So basically, Howard Hawks directed this movie. In this case, unlike the Poltergeist thing that shouldn't be a debate, Howard Hawks probably directed this movie.
Probably, yeah. He gets more credit for this than you'd think. The film very loosely adapts the story, opting instead for a tall, lumbering Frankenstein-esque monster instead of the nearly impossible microorganism shapeshifter from Campbell's story. Obviously, this was 1951. You know, special effects were difficult then. Not saying they're easy now, but like back then, it was basically like, guy in a costume was the best you could do.
Yeah, I mean I feel like they could at least done something with the shape shifting thing. At least like find a way to not have to do that part, but still have people be infected. Um, it's look the movie is a product of its time. I it did its best with the paranoia and building the tension, and I did fill in the performances, but there's a lot of people in this movie,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
I
A lot
think
of subplots, a
which I
lot of a lot of like characters, like there's a romance subplot, there's like a journalist looking for a story, there's a lot happening here.
Yeah, to where it does take away the scenes with the monster. I think we get like maybe three scenes. Now, all those scenes good. Yeah, the scenes with the monster are really good. And I did quite enjoy the scene when like they open the door and it's like right fucking there. Um that's really good. And you have a fire stunt that for 51 when this came out, I was actually kind of impressed with. I'm like, damn, that's actually like an impressive fire stunt for the time this film came out.
That was the only part I liked was the fire stunt. That actually freaked me out a bit because thing gets lit up and then it just starts coming at them and the camera starts getting all shaky. Like it feels like something from much later in Hollywood's history. Like that moment was very ahead of its time and I was very impressed with that.
Yeah, yeah. As soon as they did the whole fire, I'm like, you did not get a lot of that back in those days because even back then that shit was dangerous because they didn't have a lot of the safety precautions they have now. Even now, it's still a dangerous thing to do. If you do it wrong,
Yeah. But in
we have the whole Kane Hodder story
mm,
that he'll tell you about. Um, but for back then, like, wow, they really fucking pulled that off there.
yeah, in the 50s, I mean, you're basically dousing a guy in fire who's wearing a costume that's like made of like flammable like latex and shit. Like it's amazing that guy survived it. Like, there weren't safety precautions on set like back then. They just lit the whole fucking place up.
No, no, they only had so many takes, and I mean, he like you said, he comes through that scene right close to the other actors, and then finally turns and goes out out the wall, which I'm sure they, was a breakable wall, obviously, to get through, and just like fucking gets out there, and the fire still goes, and it's like, damn, yeah, like it makes me kind of wish the film had like more of that, because I'm like, that is really impressive. Like that scene alone really impressed me with what they pulled off for 1951. Um, Again, I can get why people like the film. I definitely understand it. I definitely get it. I mean, I thought it was fine. Um, it's not something I'm gonna go back to a whole lot.
Yeah. The only like if we ever did that as its own episode, that'd probably be what brings me back to it, but I don't see that happening in the future. Um,
Yeah,
the film becomes more of an allegory against communism than alien horror. The film got pretty lukewarm reviews upon release, but it ended up becoming a cult classic and is now, much like the 1982 film, was, reevaluated, is now considered one of the greatest sci-fi films of all time. So it's interesting that both versions had that initial, it's not that great, and then years later were reevaluated by new people and thought, oh shit, this is actually amazing. Uh, and
yeah.
I did find this absolutely hilarious. Sci-fi author Isaac Asimov, writer of I, Robot and many other amazing stories, thought The Thing from Another World was one of the worst movies he's ever seen.
Okay.
That's gotta hurt coming from a guy like Isaac Asimov. That's
That probably stung a little bit. I like I said, I can get its legacy because I like the idea of an alien in that kind of area, in that desolate area of the ward.
Mhm.
The only for those who don't know, like they send there are scientists that go out to the Antarctica, and it's kind of like the best way I can describe it so people kind of understand it's equivalent to like a military guy's going on deployment. Scientists go out there for so long, they have a base with everything they need there, and they do whatever they do. They study, do research, all this kind of stuff over there, and they do it for months, and it's just them. It's just them out there. It's a very remote area. So the idea of like that kind of thing happening and you're stuck in a remote area is inherently terrifying, and it's a very unforgiving environment. Those buildings, if you don't have those buildings, you're facing below 0 degree temperatures, and we're talking, I mean, freezing cold. You're out there for long enough, you will fucking die from the cold. Um, so I can get why like almost that stood the test of time. Just like the 50s is a weird decade with film, in that there's a lot of 50 films that I just find fine.
well, it was so, just every almost every movie was made to like somehow lampoon the Russians or hype America up, and there was very little focus on individuality or creativity. We'd see that finally explode in the 60s. But yeah, post World War II American film is incredibly lily white and kind of a joke. Ah,
Yeah.
Um, but thankfully we figured that out. So the next phase of this story was, of course, our main story here. John Carpenter was first approached about the project in 1976 by his friend Stuart Cohen, who was a co-producer on this film. Carpenter was an independent film director, so Universal decided not worth their time. They wanted an established director who was, working with studios, so they picked Tobe Hooper. They had him under contract. But
I mean,
ultimately, hmm?
that's I would definitely an interesting movie. Toby Hooper's The Thing.
Well, that's not what Universal thought because they were ultimately unhappy with him and his writing partner Kim Henkel's concept, so they kicked him to the curb. Which makes me wonder, like, Carpenter delivered a visceral, bloody, gory, freakish adventure. What did Tobe Hooper show them that was so bad?
Right? And I mean, you just said Kim Henkel, like that's his writing partner he's had since Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So like, what did they concoct?
I don't know, I'm just picturing
God,
like the 50s monster with a chainsaw.
I kind of hope there's like a script of that in existence because I would love to find a way to get my hands on that just to read.
Right? There's so many unmade scripts out there that I would love to just check out. Like Carpenter, for instance, was going to do Creature from the Black Lagoon, and I've seen a copy of his script. I haven't read it, but I've seen the script. I have access to it.
God, that would be awesome. You know, one I've been dying to get my hands on,
Hmm.
George A. Romero's Resident Evil adaptation when he was going to do it.
Oh, that would be.
God, do I want to fucking hunt that thing down?
I found Kevin Smith's Superman Lives at that script shop in Seattle.
Oh, you lucky bastard!
You were there.
I know. That's right. That's where I found the Saw script.
Yeah. Yeah, I like collecting scripts is fun, especially movies that didn't happen.
Oh
Uh
yeah, it's a little like portal into like a what its own little what if that got made.
yeah. So Carpenter, after Hooper said no, or Hooper was fired, Carpenter was then courted by Universal because they were like, well, we got to get this off the ground. So fine. He had his previous three films, Escape from New York, The Fog, and Halloween, were all substantial hits critically and financially. So they thought he was a safe bet. Uh, and this was one of Things from Another World was one of Carpenter's favorite movies. He wanted to take things back to the fundamentals of the short story. And this was Carpenter's first film with a major studio and thus a major budget. So he had never had freedom like this before, uh, which is interesting. You look at Halloween, Escape from New York, The Fog. They're such well constructed movies. You'd think that he had a budget, but he did not have a budget.
No, he kind of like people like Damien Leone with Terrifier films, right? He knew how to work with the budget he had.
Yeah,
He knew how to make it look good, how to get those shots that were necessary. He's just that kind of he was just that kind of filmmaker. He just knew how to pull this off. Budget didn't matter to him. He knew how to make it happen.
it's amazing. Um, the thing was so Universal hired Bill Lancaster, son of Oscar-winning actor Burt Lancaster, to write the screenplay. I didn't know that. That's fucking awesome.
That was my first time learning that. I never put two and two together.
Yeah, me neither. Lancaster also wrote The Bad News Bears and The Bad News Bears Go to Japan, and that was it. He never wrote anything after The Thing, and he passed away in 1997 from a heart attack. Writes three movies, one of them one of the greatest films ever made, and then he just bounces.
Right? Like one of the greatest horror films ever made, one of the more well-known comedies, and then a sequel. And then bounces. Yeah.
So weird. I don't know. I couldn't find out why. I wanted to find like,
Hmm.
did he like was it family? Was it a bad experience? Was it money? Like what made him stop? But I couldn't find
I
that stuff.
mean, look, considering the writers had their strike this year, it could have been money. People in studios don't give a fuck about the writers.
It's true, and that's pretty much been the case since Hollywood started. Uh, I love that Lancaster won Carpenter over by describing to him the scene where the Norris thing fakes a heart attack, and then the infamous blood test scene. So those were the two scenes where Carpenter was like, "Yep, I want to do this."
I'm the man for the job now.
Yep. And Bill Lancaster also didn't like Who Goes There. Love that. Um, so now that he's got, the partnerships made, we got Carpenter, we got Lancaster, there's a vision here. The big question now is how the hell is Carpenter going to translate this crazy shit to the big screen? Enter Rob Bottin, without whom this
The
never would have been possible.
legendary. Yes, the legend. And what I like is that Stan Winston was on this project too before before Jurassic Park and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But I loved in the behind the scenes, he quickly was like, "Look, this is Rob Bottin's movie. Like, this is not." He goes, "I helped, I played my part." He goes, "But that was all him. It's his movie. He deserves praise, not me."
Yeah. Winston was brought in after the production schedule was getting out of hand, and Bottin needed some help with another sequence. So he brought in Stan Winston, and we'll get to that sequence in a minute here. But the
Mm.
fact that both those creature effect legends were involved in this movie, just, that's all the evidence. Like if I knew nothing about the thing and you told me that like like those two guys did this, I'd be like, yeah, it's probably gonna be a pretty good movie.
Yeah.
Uh, so Rob Bottin, how he ended up getting into Carpenter's inner circle is actually pretty cool. He
Mhm.
met Dean Cundy, Carpenter's cinematographer on his previous three movies, on the set of the film Rock and Roll High School. It's like a Ramones '80s comedy. I haven't seen it. I've heard about it. Um,
Mm.
begged him to introduce him to John Carpenter. He was like, "You worked with Carpenter. Holy shit! I loved Halloween. Could you get me a meeting?" And Cundy's like, "I'll see what I can do." And Bottin did some work on The Fog. Like he went to the set of The Fog, and Cundy's like, "Hey Carpenter, hey John, this kid wants to talk to you, like a job." And John said, like, "Stand up." He looked at Bottin. He's like, "You're hired. Be here tomorrow morning."
Oh yeah, I love when Bottin was talking about that. He said as soon as he told him to stand, we thought, "Shit, he's going to tell me to leave." And Carmen's like, "No, you're hired. Come back tomorrow."
Isn't it great how easy it used to be to like get a job on a movie? You just knew somebody who knew somebody. You could end up doing some ghost pirate shit, and then you end up doing the makeup effects on the thing.
Yeah, it's great how it used to work.
Yeah. So Bottin did some work on The Fog, later did some work on The Howling, and his work on The Howling impressed Carpenter enough to give him the thing. So, it all worked out the way it was supposed to. Uh,
Yeah, I mean, I can believe that. The effects in The Howling should be talked about more. I know they get overshadowed by American Werewolf in London, and obviously those effects are fucking phenomenal, but the effects in Howling are really good too. Robert Teen did a great job with that.
I think didn't he study under Rick Baker? Like, wasn't he his protege? There you
Yeah,
go.
yeah. The Rick Baker, the big thing with Rick Baker is that he kind of broke the mold. It used to be like special effect guys kept their shit a secret. So like God bless a new one wanted to break into the industry. And Rick Baker was like, "Yeah, no, fuck that. Let me teach these guys what they need to know." And yeah, he took in Rob Bottin. So he was kind of part of that new guard of like, "No, let me show you what I know because one day, I gotta get replaced."
I can I like that he was very open about his process, but I also kind of get the other side of the coin where if you're the only one in Hollywood who can do a good werewolf, that's job security for life. I kind of get that. But, either way works.
Yeah. I Yeah. I mean, it worked out and it led to a lot of, I mean, because we got Robert T and Stan Winston, Nicotero, Savini, we got all these guys out of it. So it worked
It,
out.
it is like Rick Baker begat Robotine, and like it just keeps going down the road, down the line. Like, people, learning all these awesome tricks in the special effects game. Pretty sweet. Uh,
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Rick Baker was revolutionary for that. Doesn't get talked about a lot unless you're in Hollywood, but he was revolutionary for that.
first guy ever to win Best Makeup at the Oscars, American Werewolf in London. Never forget that. So everybody told Carpenter that the idea of a shapeshifter was too much. They were like, "How the hell are you going to visualize this? This is insane." But he trusted Bottin to deliver, and Bottin said to Carpenter, "Here's what it should be. It can be anything. This is the opportunity of a lifetime to do something nobody has seen." And I love that idea of like, you are given the keys to the kingdom for this wild, potentially awesome movie, and there's no mold. You can do anything. The limit is your imagination as a special effects guy. And Bottin took full advantage of that. He really showed you like the wackiest, most insane, freaky shit. Like our podcast contributor and buddy Colton watched this film for the first time earlier today, and the whole time he was texting me like, "What the fuck?" and stuff like that. Like he had never seen anything like this, and this is today. So yeah, just so much praise goes to Bottin and his vision.
Yeah, yeah. They fully took advantage of the idea that this thing could be anything it wanted to be to try to blend in and not be caught. Um, and I think like it helped that the 80s was that time period of like special effects were taking off big time. That was the big push, like special effects and a lot of stuff, especially in horror. Um, and it just helped that you had someone that finally said like the beauty of this is that our imagination is the only limitation. Besides that, we can pull this off. And yeah, you see it on display from the sketches they showed in the behind the scenes that Rob Bottin had done to what we end up getting, all because he didn't let his imagination inhibit him. He didn't let anything that they told him inhibit. He said, "No, we can make it work. We can do it. It can happen. Just we can make this a thing."
Yeah, no such thing as impossible. Uh, and Carpenter was very modest about like who he credits the success of this film to. He said it was 50% Rob Bottin's effects talent and 50% Dean Cundey's cinematography. Like he doesn't take a lot of personal like, you know, praise for how the film turned out. He says, it was my team, which I respect.
He's always been like that, and that's why I think when like people, again, why I kind of defend him with his like his grumpy man status now, because he's not egotistical. Like he's called the master of horror, one of the masters of horror, but he'll quickly like shove that aside. He's like, I don't want to talk about that. Like, I don't care. And when it comes to any of his films, not just a thing, but with a lot of his films, he will credit other people well before he credits himself. He will never ever sit there and be like, oh yeah, it's because I was such a great director. Like something that admittedly, some of your more well-known directors probably would be quick to say, and I'm not going to say names. Um, but not him. He'd be so quick to be like, no, it's because of these people that this film was successful, not me. You know, I would say his direction is some of the reason the film was successful.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, they used copious amounts of KY jelly to make the creatures look very slimy looking. They just bought a fuck ton of KY, pun intended. And
I did, I
yeah.
I love how many like stories involve like lube basically being like what they needed in a film. Like I think KY doesn't survive because of like the porn industry. I think it survives solely because of fucking the regular film industry.
Well, I mean, it makes things look, slimy and gross and weird. It's also non-toxic. So I think, yeah.
And all you gotta do to get it off is spray a hose. It's water based half the time.
Get it off. Nice. Um, yeah. So the KY jelly, and then I thought this part was awesome. So the scene where Richard Dysart is doing, clear, like one of the best scenes in the movie, and the Norris creature opens up and eats his arms. The way they did this was so smart. So they made arms out of jello, filled it with fake blood. They then found a guy with no arms and put a mold of Richard Dysart's face over that guy's face for when the arms get bitten off. Like how inventive.
Yeah, and you wouldn't ever notice looking at the film. You don't. I love Arvo Teens. Like anytime I watch it now, I'm just like, oh, I could have done that better. I'm like, I mean, yeah, I mean, he because he knows what he did. He knows he was there. Um, but for me, a person that's just hearing these stories, and even when I first watched it and didn't know any of this stuff, it still holds up. Like you don't notice. It's done so well.
Yeah. It's so seamless, all of it. Like I don't see the not once am I like, oh, that looks fake, or there's the zipper. No, the whole time you're like, fuck. No matter how many times you watch this, you're just in awe of how nightmarish this still looks. And
Yes.
uh so the scene that Stan Winston did was the scene with the dogs in the kennel. The first time we really see the thing at work. And whew, good work, Stan. Goddamn. Um, that's some freaky that separates the men from the boys. Like when if you can get past that, you can handle the rest of the movie.
Or that's the movie saying that, hey, this is what this film's going to be. Can you handle it?
Yeah.
and like you're on board or you're off at that point. I was on board immediately. I'm still obviously on board. The only thing that's changed now when I watch that scene is I have to look at my dog and be like, I swear to God, you run at that TV, I'm going to kill you.
For me, I'm just constantly like thinking. So the main husky who plays the thing at the beginning of the movie, his name's Jed, and he was a very good boy. But he's also half wolf.
Those huskies are awesome.
Yeah, that husky could fucking act. He was. We're gonna talk about him when we talk about performance. I'm not gonna lie. I was very impressed by that dog. He was like just I bought like he felt alien. Like the way the dog just carried itself was like it didn't feel like a dog. It felt like something pretending to be a dog. I don't know how they captured that with a husky, but props. And then just watching
Yeah.
its face open and devour the other huskies is fucking horrific.
Yeah, I have a dog that I love to death, and that scene just horrifies me because I'm like, oh God, those poor dogs.
It's like it had to be a husky. Like you couldn't do that shit with like a bunch of dachshunds. It wouldn't work.
No,
I
no.
think it would look kind of silly.
I'd laugh.
Yeah, I'd be like, ah, that dachshund opened up. He thinks he's a big boy.
Yeah, it was horrifying. Like for those who don't know, because I know guess if I haven't said 1,000 times, I have a Shepherd Lab mix, so like that would horrify me. He's about the size of the husky is in the movie. Yeah, that'd be horrifying. If I just woke up one night time in my bed doing that, I'd be like, oh no.
Yeah, I would imagine.
But if like, yeah, if I had like my sister, she has the dachshund. If he did that, I'd be like, oh, that's adorable. Let me just get out of bed and just scamper away.
I'm trying to picture your reaction to like in the middle of the night you wake up and Duke opens in front of you. Are you gonna be like, this is a weird nightmare? Or are you gonna like react and get the fuck out of there?
I'm going to hope it's a nightmare, and then when I realize it's real, I'm going to try to react and get the fuck out of there. But then it'll probably be too late. So I'll keep just be like, it's a nightmare. It's a nightmare. All fine.
The giant dog literally like opened up into a monster right in front of me. I feel like I would freeze up and probably die.
Yeah. If,
Uh, hmm?
gosh, God, now if my dog does that tonight, I swear to God.
Yeah, I if I get a text from you like, dude, you're not gonna believe what happened last night, and that's the story I get, you better fucking call me. That shit warrants a phone call, man.
Yeah. No, the only thing Duke has done is the only reason I'm working up in the middle of the night because of Duke is because he fell off the bed one night. I think he went to adjust himself, and I heard a loud bang and a yelp. You know that dog yelp when they're in pain.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did that, and I woke him. I was like, "The hell?" He fell off the bed. He's fine. No one worry. He's fine. But scared the shit out of me because I was asleep.
Oh, well, I hope he figures his shit out because your dog's a bit of a doofus.
He's a great dog. He's adorable, but he's a doofus. As much as I love him.
Uh, the thing was shot in three primary locations. The Juneau ice fields of Alaska. They shot the opening bit with the dog in the helicopter up in the wilds of the Arctic. The rest of the movie was shot on a refrigerated soundstage in LA, which I thought was funny. So all the interior shots are done in LA.
Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna crack when they talked about like how they went to go get lunch and they had to get out of all their clothes because it was like LA. Rather than they go back in and be like it'd be freezing, so they throw all their shit back on.
Uh, and then during the summer, they shot on a glacier in Stewart, British Columbia, with a remaining ore. And in the winter, it snowed, and they had the camp set, so they could film outside out there in British Columbia. So a couple locations, he wanted to do this right. It wasn't just the back lot with some fake ass snow. It was sometimes, but other times he wanted actual snow. um,
Yeah, and it shows the film looks great still to this day.
it does. You never question that it's, you don't ever think like that's not the Arctic. You roll with it. Um,
Yeah.
the, the effects were so complex and time consuming that the shooting schedule fell behind big time. Carpenter said The Thing was the most challenging film he ever made, but he's immensely proud of it. In a 2016 interview with filmmaker Mick Garris, he said of all the films he's made, The Thing comes closest to his original vision. And his favorite bit is when Norris's head falls off and grows spider legs, because why wouldn't it be?
Yeah. Yeah, no. Yeah, it's he's maintained that stance. Mick Garris, for those who don't know, he did before he did a lot of Stephen King adaptations and had his own directing career. And he actually has been kind of hinting one of the reasons he stopped doing the Postmortem podcast because he's been hinting that he has some projects he's been working on that are very close to happening. So we're about to get hopefully some more Mick Garris in our lives, which is always exciting. Before that, he was a publicist. He did that's why he's had the stance he's had with the Poltergeist thing. He was a publicist for that movie, and that's why I've one of my many backup reasons on why Toby Hooper directed is because he said it himself. He's like, Hooper's directed that movie. He goes, and this is a guy that has worked with Spielberg himself. McGarris did an episode of Amazing Stories with Spielberg, and they are friends. He actually would try to get him on the podcast, but Spielberg's just a busy guy, so he still talks to Spielberg. Um, so yeah, I can kind of trust his opinion on that more than people on the internet. Um, but he was also a publicist for the thing. He was there on a lot of it, and he luckily, even though Carpenter's quite the grump, during interviews, because they're really good friends, he tends to answer his questions a lot more, which makes for a fun interview with them. Because I watched that same thing. It was a lot of fun watching them because again, Carpenter's a little bit more willing to open up to Mick Garris and actually answer the questions and have a conversation with him since they're buds.
Yeah, it was very eye-opening, and it's cool to hear Carpenter talk about his career and with like pride and not pain.
Yeah. I mean, it also helps that like Mick Garris is a really good interviewer. Like he really knows how to get answers out of people. So it helps that he's really good at his job, and then they're friends. So it made for a good thing. And yeah, it was nice seeing Carpenter kind of like reminisce in a good way on his stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Mick Garris suggested the thing's box office failure could be due to the giant success of E.T., but as he also said, who do you know who's still talking about E.T. in 2016?
And yeah, I've always agreed. And again, this is I like ET myself. I think it's one of Spielberg's better films. But he's right. Like I feel like more people talk about the thing than they do ET. Um, and I think it's just like a lot of them did say it. A lot of them agreed that it was just the timing of the release. Just ET was just a juggernaut when it came out. It's kind of like when a recent example was why did when the studio was like, we'll release Del Toro's new film, Nightmare Alley, the same day, the same weekend Spider-Man No Way Home comes out. It'll be fine. No, because one was a box office juggernaut that ate everything. Um, it's the same thing that happened. They felt the need to do it right when E.T. was coming out and was a huge box office hit, and they made the comment that it opened in between Poltergeist, which at the time was a huge hit. It just didn't stand a chance when it came out, unfortunately. But like McGarris said, it stood the test of time. More people talk about the thing. I have seen more anniversary screenings for it than I have for ET, certainly. So it's like it's to me, it stood a better test of time
Yeah.
than ET has.
I hit that anniversary screening in 2022. I got to go to that, and that was a blast. Full house.
Yeah, it's still talked about, and it's not just like what I love is it's not just horror fans. Like this is one of those horror films that like even mainstream people, like more casual film fans, know about and talk about to this very day.
Hmm. So let's talk a bit about the casting of this movie. Once he'd cast the movie, Carpenter insisted on 2 weeks rehearsal on an empty soundstage with the whole cast and crew. And this was expensive, but he insisted that Universal pay for that. And that got everybody a sense of camaraderie, and you got the sense that they'd been working together for a while, which is what you needed for the thing to work.
And it's something that that I'm glad he insists on because it is an aspect of filmmaking that's been slowly going away because studios don't want to fork out that money. Um, but I think is a huge benefit, especially in films where they have to have camaraderie or some kind of chemistry. Um, I think it helps when you give them time before they shoot to build that chemistry up, as opposed to like, okay, we're shooting, give us chemistry.
Studios want Avengers level success, but they don't want to pay for it.
Yeah, yeah, they don't want to fork out the money to get that kind of success.
He also had the whole cast watch The Thing from Another World together, and Peter Maloney, who played Bennings, he didn't like it. thought it didn't hold up. So this made me happy because I also felt the film didn't hold up and I didn't like the story. And knowing that people like associated with this movie also thought the same thing, that made me very happy.
Honestly, it felt like only Carpenter really liked the film. Everyone else was like, "Yeah, John, we like it. Yeah, yeah,
Makes me think of Winston from Ghostbusters. If there's a steady paycheck in it, I'll believe anything you say. Ah, so Carpenter apparently liked to play practical jokes on people, made it a very fun, comfortable set for everybody. He played video games all the time. Uh,
that love of video games
oh
started early."
yeah, he everyone was comfortable. No one really had anything bad to say. Wilford Brimley was talking about Kurt Russell, said he was a good guy, pleasure to be around. Uh, Keith David broke his left hand in a car accident right before they started shooting, and for the first half of the movie, you can't see his left hand. It's always hidden. Uh, Never noticed that before.
Oh wow, I never noticed that. I always, I Keith David's just the fucking man. I love him so much. And I loved when he was talking about like the release of the film. He goes, "There's one review that stood out to me." And he goes, "Well, you can't take your kids to see this." And he goes, "Yeah, no shit. Then don't take your kids to go see it." What do you mean?
That is not a critique. That is frankly, it shows that you're not a very good parent. That's
Yeah.
insane. Yeah. Keith David's got such a cool voice and yeah, just has a really cool
In
presence.
class, I'm about to say in class, that man is he just gives off class to me. Anytime I see him, I'm just like, oh, he's a classy man.
Yes, indeed. Um, Carpenter purposefully left the ending ambiguous. He knows exactly who the thing is at the end of the movie, but he's not going to tell you. That's his
Oh,
business.
I love it. I love his refusal. And I love he will straight up. I think he because he actually did do the promotional circuit for a little bit when his show came out recently. And he was on even on Colbert. He popped up on his late night show. And even I think Colbert was like, "So do you know?" And he was just like, even then he goes, "Oh yeah, I know. Are you going to tell us?" Nope.
He's gonna take that to his grave. And like how he like knowing his love of practical jokes and his disdain for the industry, he's gonna keep that shit to himself.
Dude, I'm proud of him. Don't tell anyone because I love the ambiguous ending. I love it. Um, I think it's the best. I know they mentioned they shot a different ending. They had written like there were different endings. They were kind of having issues figuring out how the hell this was going to end. Um, but I like what they picked. It fits with the theme of the movie and what the movie's doing.
Yeah.
And I think it's best left ambiguous. I personally think it's Child's. I am in that camp with the theory of like the breath thing. Because I was watching, I was like, yeah, you don't ever see his breath like you do McCready's. But I love the ambiguous. I love that we're keeping it open.
Yeah. It's dark, it's the apocalypse. It's not supposed to be sunshine and lollipops. This is the end of days, bitches.
Yeah. And look, the only thing you know for certain is that both will definitely die before rescue comes. That for sure is certain.
Oh yeah. So the music. This is one of Carpenter's rare movies where he did not compose the score. The score was done by iconic Italian film composer Ennio Morricone. But Carpenter showed Morricone the music from Escape from New York and said, "Can you give me something like that?" So the thing is Morricone doing Carpenter.
Yeah. And I did like how when Mick asked about that, Carmen's like, okay, let me just dispel a rumor that's been going on for a while. He goes, people are mistaken. And like basically like Morricone did, like you said, he did what he was required to do, but he kind of like the bare minimum or was very like it was very sparse as like Carpenter kind of put it. And Carpenter said he did actually himself do like 3 scenes himself and he beefed up the score. So there is still the Carpenter touch there.
Yeah. I
He didn't luckily to
yeah, I feel like if Carpenter wasn't heavily involved in the music, he wouldn't have added it to his set list when he does his tours of doing his music.
exactly. And to his credit again, he didn't dismiss Morricone. I don't think he would ever do that. I mean, the guy's a fucking legendary composer. He was very quick to be like, no, he did what was required. He did a very good job. I just beefed it up a bit where I could.
Yeah. And you can tell. I mean,
Mm.
if you played this like alongside Escape from New York and The Fog, you wouldn't question that it wasn't Carpenter. Like it's just it feels
Yeah.
very much like his work.
I honestly forget until I watch the film every single time that it's not Carpenter that does the score because I'm like, oh yeah, it's Carpenter. Like it sounds just like his stuff.
Yeah.
And then I'm like,
It's
oh wait, that's right, Morricone does this.
it sounds so similar to Prince of Darkness. Like the two scores could be like identical. It's very I think there's more Carpenter in here than we think.
Yeah,
Um, Morricone did write some lush violin scores for the thing that ended up not being used, and he recycled some of that music into his score for The Hateful Eight, which he won an Oscar for in 2015, which also has a very similar vibe to the thing of somebody in this cabin's not who they appear to be. So,
right. Even though I prefer the thing over the Hateful Eight.
oh yeah,
I'm sorry, Tarantino
that's not
fans.
even a conversation.
Yeah, sorry, Tarantino fans.
Yeah, there's no one in the thing who tells the story of the time they made a Confederate suck their dick. So, you know, if this film was missing anything, I guess it's that.
Yeah, I'll stand by it. I don't think that Hateful Eight is one of Tarantino's best films. I'll stand by that statement.
It's my least favorite of his, but I mean, even his worst movie is still like leagues better than some directors' best movies.
Oh no, absolutely. His worst films are at least better than some directors' worst films.
Yeah. Um, so as a result of E.T. kind of stealing the thing's thunder, people wanted friendly alien and evil ghost. They did not want friendly ghost and evil alien.
With a nihilistic ending.
Yeah, they didn't want the apocalypse in the ice, which I kind of get, but also like, don't take your kids. That really bothered me. Really? Somebody's
Yeah,
taking their
that's
kids?
the
My God.
I agree with Keith David's statement. And like, yeah, then just don't take your kid. That's not a review. Are you serious?
Yeah. My God. Can you imagine going to John Carpenter and being like, your movie scared my childhood, my child, I want my money back? He'd laugh in their
Can,
face.
can you imagine? Yeah. Can you imagine that time at that time, like you when you would look at the magazine and see what they're saying about these movies? And you're like, I wonder what they're saying about the thing. I'm interested in that. Something you can't take your kids to. It's rated R, no shit. Anything else you want to tell me about the movie?
Well,
People acting sweet. All right, I'm done.
what about rated R cosmic body horror fluids and goop and blood and shit? What part of that screams, I think 8-year-old Billy would love this?
I think that's just it was a foretelling of this ideal that we need to only make films that families can see.
Fuck
Because God
family.
bless you, yeah, God bless you make R-rated shit that hey the kids can't see this. Get the fuck over it when they'll be old enough to watch it anyway. Who gives a fuck?
To quote one of my favorite comedians, Tom Segura, if you can't get a sitter, then you don't get to go to the movies.
Yeah. And guess what? In the world of streaming we live in now, I really don't care if you can't go to the movies because you can't get a sitter. Get the fuck over it. It's
Dude, if
going to
this
be on streaming even
if,
anyway.
if we were somehow doing a podcast in 1982, I mean, despite the fact that we are leagues ahead of the curve in every capacity in terms of technology, but I would also not give a shit if somebody couldn't go to the movies. That's not my problem.
Yeah, it's not mine. Look, you chose, and look, I get it. I'm all about like as a couple, you should have date nights. You should get out there. Shouldn't all be about around your kids. You're still allowed to be a couple, but realize that when you have a child, you have officially submitted your ticket to the I don't get to do as much with my life because I have a child to worry about. It's kind of like how I have accepted that I don't have things I can do because I have a dog to worry about when I go places. Hey, can I stay at a hotel in DC after a Rage Against the Machine concert? Probably not if I can't get anyone to watch my dog for the night. I got to make it back. I have to make that drive back.
Hey, that drive back was fun.
No, it is, but you know what I mean? Like I know I have to do that. I'm not bitching about it because hey, it's just a part of life. It was what happens when you make certain life decisions.
That's the key word there. Decision. You, your children, and I'm speaking to everybody who's listening to this show right now. Your children are in no way my problem or responsibility.
Yeah, if I hear them crying in my R-rated movie, I paid money to go see because I can do that still whenever I want. I'm going to be angry.
Yeah, call it out. I'm at that point in my life. Call it out. Um, okay, so as a result of all that, the thing underperformed at the box office was met largely with critical revulsion. A lot of critics were like, "This is gross. I don't want to see this." It grossed 19 million on a budget of 15 million, so $4 million profit. Not what Universal wanted. This
Yeah,
was them
even for
give.
the 80s, not yeah, I'm about to say even for the 80s, still not really big back then. I mean, you had movies regularly at that point starting to make quite a bit over their budgets.
Yeah, this was, in their opinion, Carpenter failed them. So he never really got. He lost a lot of Hollywood cred over this, which is unfortunate because he delivered a hell of a movie. Uh, it
Yeah,
took some.
and honestly, now that I think about it, really shows how cool of a guy Kurt Russell is. Because he easily, I mean, this was after they did Escape from New York. He easily at that could have said, like, dude, I'm never working with you again. I'm Kurt Russell. Like, I can do better than that. But he came back to do Big Trouble in Little China with him. He did Escape from LA with him. Like, kind of speaks again. And I only say that because I know, like, we mentioned it earlier, he's not on the more recent interviews, Kurt Russell for this stuff. And I never got the vibe of like him thinking he was better than this. It was never that vibe. It's just the dude's a in demand actor. Like he was probably busy. Um, so it's kind of a cool thing I just thought of. Like, kind of shows you like the kind of fate that the studios may have thrown him to the curb, but a lot of people, luckily, a lot of people who actually work in the industry did not. You know what I mean? They stuck by him even after this whole thing happened.
Well, it took some time, but eventually, thanks largely to VHS rentals and television reruns, the thing found an audience that loved it. It's since been reevaluated. It is now considered one of the greatest horror films of all time. And on the Shout Factory edition is the TV edit of the thing. And I gotta say, I'm curious. What is in there? What was acceptable to broadcast on fucking ABC in the 80s for this movie? Is it like
I'm
30 minutes
very
long?
cool. So it looked apparently it's like an hour and a half. So apparently they cut out like almost like 20-ish or so minutes of the film.
So I bet, yeah, all the monster scenes. Anytime there's like copious amounts of blood.
Yeah, as soon as the transformation stuff starts, we're like, and cut.
Yeah. This seems like a great time for a commercial break.
Right? What's crazy to me is that like this, and this was during the 80s and 82. So this was when like the slasher craze was taking off, like horror practical effects were taking off. Like this wasn't exactly like the only thing out there being gross, but man, they came after this. Granted, I think it was the most different and it was showing something that we weren't seeing. Yes, and that's probably why they had the reaction they had, compared to like other horror films coming out at that time period and after. Um, but it's not like again, it wasn't, it certainly at that point wasn't going to be the last thing we saw when it came to practical effects and horror films of the 80s.
Yeah, I agree. Thing has an IMDb score of 8.2, which is amazing for IMDb. Rotten Tomatoes score of 85%, audience score of 92%. Critics' consensus reads grimmer and more terrifying than the 1950s take. John Carpenter's The Thing is a tense sci-fi thriller rife with compelling tension and some remarkable makeup effects. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah, from when they were saying that when it came out, but hey, they're saying it now.
Yeah. So there was a prequel film made in 2011, also titled The Thing, that failed on every level to match up to the 1982 film. It tells the story of the Norwegian team that first discovered the ship and its pilot. It was directed by Matthijs van Heidingen, who was so disillusioned by the rampant studio interference of his film that he left Hollywood and went back to Norway. Well, the film,
Holy shit.
oh yeah, and finding a pronunciation for that guy's name was a fucking nightmare. Holy Norwegian name, Matthijs. So while the film was originally set for release in April, Universal changed the date to October 2011 to allow time for reshoots. An official studio press release stated that the intention of the reshoots was to, quote, enhance existing sequences or to make crystal clear a few story beats or to add punctuation marks to the film's feeling of dread. And that is horseshit. Universal had test screenings of an early version of the film shown to focus groups, the reaction to which the studio interpreted as negative. They didn't say they didn't like it, but the studio was like, these people seem like they don't like it. Uh, in response, many scenes involving character development were either cut from the film or reshot to be shortened as the studio disliked the slow burn pace of the film. Another concern was that the use of practical effects made the film look too much, quote, like an 80s movie. As such, the decision was made to replace most of the film's practical effects with CGI. They had already made the movie with practical effects, and the studio was like, this looks too 80s, which, yeah, was the point. It takes place in 1982, like a few days before the 80s movie. So, yeah, God. Uh, yeah, I know you have a lot of thoughts on this.
I didn't know some of this information, so I did this rewatch. So look, when I first heard about this, I'm an avid fan of Fangoria. I'm on Bloody Disgusting all the time. I have my horror sites. I keep up with all my horror news. And I remember the practical effects of this film were being promoted heavily on those sites. They were releasing screenshots and Bloody Disgusting going, "Hey, this might be really good, guys. Look at these screenshots." And it was all the practical like creations, and I was like, "Oh, this is gonna be something neat." And those pictures still exist. I implore you guys to look it up online. Those pictures still exist. Um, and I was like, okay, it's probably not going to reach the heights of the original, but you can tell like they're trying to make something special here. At least they're trying. Then I found out all that information. I had already known about the whole like replacing the practical effects because I remember that was being covered extensively of like, oh no, they're taking away the practical effects and replacing it with CGI, which by the way looks 10 times worse than when it first came out. Um,
Yeah.
because the CGI looks terrible.
I'm looking at the practical effects of the 2011. Yeah, they had it all. They had like, prosthetics and puppets and all sorts of shit. Like they were gonna do this right, and the studio fucked them. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I said. Like they had so much. And the CGI just looks terrible because you can tell it was done last minute. I remember when I was rewatching it and the first one happens where he transforms the helicopter. That's when I texted you and I was like, oh God, this still looks bad. And I'm like, fucking hell. That state, first off, interpreting the test screening as negative, not we didn't read the sheets and see what people said. We just think they didn't like it. So let's cut out the character development. It fucking shows because I didn't give a shit about any of these characters when I watched the film. Like, I don't care about anyone. You waste really good actors like Mary Elizabeth Winstead, Joel Edgerton. You're wasting these actors. I don't care about them in this movie. Um, because you cut out all the scenes that were necessary to build it up so that when shit hit the fan in the film, like it does in the original, we would have cared what happened to these people. We don't. And then to replace all that shit with CGI because your quote is it looks too much like an 80s film. The original film came out in 1982. It takes place in the 80s. This is a prequel to that film about the team that they go explore briefly in the original film when they go to the Norwegian camp. Um, yeah, no fucking shit. It looks like it was supposed to, so it stayed in line with that. You fucking idiots in charge. These are the people in charge of our movies. These are the people in charge. Not actual smart creatives, these idiots. Um that make these decisions and then we end up with the thing. So I'll say it, I would love one day, if it's possible, to get the original cut of this film edited intact. Because it sounds like even if it wouldn't have been as good as, Carpenter's the thing, you had filmmakers that we just talked about were remakes that cared, that wanted to make something that at least stood next to it. And the studio absolutely fucked that away into what it is now.
You know, hashtag release the Hage Ninja cut. Doesn't quite
Yeah,
off
give
the
us
tongue.
it doesn't. Well, I'll figure something else, but yeah, we need the original cut of this film. I'm very curious on that original cut with the scenes of character development put back in and the actual practical effects, if this would have at least been an enjoyable film that would have at least been good.
Yeah, because it is wildly bad. Like they, yeah. Where did a Mary Elizabeth Winstead go? Was she human?
I I hate that ending so much because I'm like, guys, it's a prequel. Like, and that had to be a studio mandated shit too. I'm assuming. It's a prequel. Like, she's not in the original film, so you know, like this dictates that she dies.
The helicopter scene where they start shooting the dog, that felt so tacked on, so forced. Um,
Oh God.
halfway through the movie, I started thinking like, wasn't Adewale Akinoye Agbaje in this? What happened to him? I don't remember. I don't remember what
I,
happened.
I started like mentally checking out because at first I was like, I don't remember the thing being like this capable of this stuff in the original film. And I was like, well, I'll worry about that when I watch the original film again.
The scene that I did jump at was when it breaks out of the ice. I didn't expect that, and that the way that unfolded was really good. But
That part was good, yeah.
that's about it. I agree with you. Like nobody's developed enough to care. The creature looks insanely fake. When it's like merging with Eric Christian Olsen, I don't. That looks so fake. I didn't buy that at all.
I want to feel, yeah, I was like, I want to feel bad for the character, but then it just becomes a CGI creation. And I'm just like, oh, God, the scene when it transforms in the helicopter, and I'm just like, oh, God, this looks so bad.
Ugh.
This looks so bad.
Yeah. How the hell did Joel Edgerton survive that? Not just
Well,
the
remember,
crash, but also like how did his career survive that?
oh, I was about to say, well, remember, he was the thing. That's how he survived the helicopter
Oh, the
crash. He was
whole time he
secretly,
was the thing. Oh, okay, I thought he got turned in the spaceship.
that's, I assumed it was the whole time. He could have gotten turned in the spaceship. I assumed since the helicopter. I don't know. The movie doesn't really give a shit either. Um, I think the only reason he survived is because he came out with the gift, and that was like, okay, we're good with Joel Edgerton.
No, I give full credit to Warrior.
Oh yeah, I always forget about Warrior. That's a really good movie.
Yeah. Um, they've been trying to do another one for quite some time. Apparently, there's a sequel series in development right now that Carpenter has put his blessing on. He's involved as a producer, so who knows? Maybe that'll happen. Is it going to be in the Arctic again, or did this fucker finally make it out of the ice?
I don't know. I have heard about that where they've been toying with a sequel series, a sequel movie. I know Carpenter's kind of involved, at least producing wise, with both now that he's kind of entering the ring
Yeah.
of filmmaking in some way in more recent years. We'll see.
I read in the trivia that the original intention of the prequel, they were going to reveal that the pilot of the ship was not the thing. It found the thing on another planet and was taking it home to research it. It got out, infected him, and he crashed the ship in an attempt to kill himself and the alien.
That would have been a cool approach,
Mhm.
especially tying it into the very beginning of Carpenter's with the spaceship coming to Earth.
All right, but then I'm like, isn't that isn't that basically Prometheus?
Yeah, but I
So,
mean, this was before Prometheus came out, so they would have been the first to do it,
I know, but then like, was Ridley talking to somebody on that set and thought, oh, that's a good idea, and then scribbled it in a notebook and then left?
right? He just was like, let me see how this movie plays out first. Oh, good. They didn't do it. I can do it. Haha.
I think even if they did do it, he was going to do it, quote, better.
Yeah, well, we saw how that turned out.
Okay. With that, let's go back to the thing, the good one, and give it some talk about it properly. We got four categories here: best scene, best performance, best music moment, and best line. Where do you want to start?
Look, I want to say it. I want to knock out the music first, only because I cheated. I didn't put any specific moment. I just put the whole goddamn movie. I can't do this with Carpenter anymore. It's so hard with Carpenter. It's so hard when it comes to music.
Yeah, fair enough. I also put Superstition by Stevie Wonder because that's briefly in the movie. Um,
Yeah, that's the part.
I do love that. Let's just talk a little bit about like Morricone's score here, Morricone, Carpenter, whoever you want to credit with this. I love,
Both. I'll credit both. They're both great.
yeah, Mora Carpenter. Um, I love it feels like the monster's heartbeat. Like that's what Evil's heartbeat sounds like. And that was I realized that on this watch and I was like, fuck, that's cool.
Yeah, it and the way the score can just build during the as the scenes start getting more intense during those scenes, it's so masterful. And then like when the scenes do get detensed, like the tense scenes kind of subside in that steady beat that will sometimes play throughout to just keep you on edge, to just kind of keep you like, oh shit, things still aren't right, even though we've subsided,
Yeah.
something's still amiss.
Only Carpenter could basically sustain an entire movie on dun dun. Like that's pretty much it. But it's terrifying. Wow.
Yeah, dude, it's just God, like, yeah, that's why I was like, dude, okay, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to cheat this one time and just put the whole score. I can't. You have two masters that just merged it together so fucking flawlessly throughout this whole entire film.
Yeah, it's a beautiful score. I'd love to have a vinyl edition of this score. I
Oh,
think that
God.
would be beautiful.
I'm about to say, I've already gone wild on my Spotify account and like followed John Carpenter on there and downloaded like all of his albums.
I'm
If I could
surprised.
get them on vinyl,
Yeah, I'm surprised you haven't taken the plunge into like buying like horror soundtracks.
the only reason I haven't is space. It's
Ah,
actually that's my sole reason is space.
yeah.
If I had space, trust me, Raxworks would have my money so much.
Because like earlier you were showing me your like horror themed energy drink, and I'm thinking like he's not buying vinyl, but he's buying fucking drinks.
Yes, G Fool, thank you for doing a horror collection called the Hack and Slash, and I'm liking it enough that I am going to be looking at the Chucky one that's coming out, and I might get the one that comes with the shaker.
All right, let's do dialogue. I don't have a lot written down
Yeah,
here. It's an amazing script, but I only have 3 lines written down. I want to start with I love the implications of this line. It's right after the Norwegians landed at the American outpost. The one idiot blew up his chopper with the grenade that slipped out of his hands, and the other one got shot by Gary. And McCready just walks up to the wreckage and just goes, "First goddamn week of winter." I'm thinking like, buddy, you have no idea.
yeah, I have no idea how much first is going to get.
This is the best it's gonna get. This is the last time you're gonna remember being kind of happy.
Yeah, because it's going downhill real quick.
I love his first goddamn week of winter. Like that's all you need to know. It tells you about McCready, tells you about the situation. It was perfect.
Oh yeah, and mainly kind of like that the just making Kurt Russell a badass, and that line sells it. You're like, all right, I like this character.
Well, I love that like McCready's not even in charge. He's like their pilot, but he over the course of the film takes charge of the situation because he knows he's human and he knows he's the only one he can trust. And
Yeah,
perfect.
great.
The guy with the dynamite and the flamethrower makes the rules.
Yeah, I like that. Come near me, I'm blowing this up. We all go. The look of crazy in his eye in that scene, it's like he's done. Don't fuck with him right now.
Wild.
The one line I picked, it's a simple line, but it's become super iconic with the movie. And it's they talk about in the bonus features. It's when the head starts to walk away and they all look, and you get that beautiful shot of the guy going, "You've got to be fucking kidding."
Yeah, that was my second line too. That's it's too perfect. It's the exact reaction a guy like Palmer would have to watching that unfold. It's like, what? Like he can't
Yeah,
comprehend that he's that's what he's watching.
yeah, it's why the line works so well because at that point, you the audience feel the same way. You're like, okay, okay, we're good. And then you see the head come off, and you're like, are you kidding me right now? And then they finally see it, and he says what the audience seeing is just, you got to be fucking kidding me right now. Like
It's
it's doing this now.
it's the fucking spider legs and the antenna. It's like this is nuts. How does somebody read this script and think like I know exactly what this scene needs? Like, you know, open chest, big mouth, tear off head, head grows spider legs. Blah. Like that's you get me, John? Just it's great. My God. Yeah, I love that. My last one is from Gary after Blood test exonerates him, and he has a moment of panic where he says, I know you gentlemen have been through a lot, but when you find the time, I'd rather not spend the rest of this winter tied to this fucking couch. Like, yeah, I get it, Gary. You've earned it.
They all have like really great scenes of that where you can just tell they're done. Like this is not what they how they expected their fucking time to go.
No, if you would have, before they headed up there, if somebody had like alien invasion on your bingo card, would have said they were crazy. Like, nope.
Yeah, even like this is just insanity. Now, one little bit of longer, and I almost forgot until I was like, oh shit, I meant to pull the IMDb on this one because I was like, I'm not writing this whole goddamn thing. And it has to do with that blood test. And it comes from McCready, but that little like monologue he has where he's like, we're going to draw a little bit of everybody's blood because we're going to find out who's the thing. He's like, watching Norris in there gave me the idea that maybe every part of him was a whole. Every little piece was an individual animal with a built-in desire to protect its own life. You see, when a man bleeds, it's just tissue. But blood from one of you things won't obey when it's attacked. It will try and survive, crawl away from a hot needle, say. It's just that's like it encapsulates again why he takes lead. He is already understanding very quickly how this thing is operating. And this idea of like, this is what we're doing because I can't trust any of you fuckers. And this is how this thing is operating. So we're going to find out which one of you is it right now.
It consistently like just astonishes me how quickly that sense of paranoia sets in this movie. It is so fast. It's so as soon as this thing starts mutating into people, they're just like, oh, I don't know, like where were you, a second ago? Well, I was over here. Well, who can prove that? I don't trust you. It just explodes like the fear and the uncertainty and the confusion of this impossible situation just boils over so quickly and it does not stop. It's yeah, it's like just so hypnotizing.
Yeah. It's oh god. And that little speech captures it so perfectly. Like, we're all going to stay calm right now. We're going to do this blood test. I want to find out who it is. When I do, I'm going to kill you.
Yeah, we're going to talk a lot about the blood test when we get to scene. Um, Performance. So instinct, I think for both of us is to go Kurt Russell.
I mean, yeah,
So
he's amazing.
yeah, he's incredible. He's if I was gonna follow anybody into hell, it's Kurt Russell, which is why that bit in South
Especially with
Park,
that hair.
yeah,
I was about to say, especially with that hair and beard combo. I'm like, yeah, I'll follow that man.
that bit in South Park where they like bring him into Imagination Land because he was in Stargate, and he's like, I don't know why I'm here. Like you were in that movie that was kind of like this. Like I get it. I would as soon as shit hits the fan, I'm gonna go find Kurt Russell.
He knows what to do.
Yeah. All right. So outside of Kurt Russell, who we all agree owns this movie, who else get
Keith
deserves
David.
props here? Keith David. All right.
Keith David, without question. This is a guy who to me like Kurt Russell is always like he commands the screen in anything he's in. I've always liked Keith David. Even when like for those who aren't familiar, any Rick and Morty fans, he plays the president of the United States in Rick and Morty. Um Recently he's been in tons of other things. But he's always a commanding presence on screen. Even when he's just like in Rick and Morty, he's just a voice. You know it's him because he has just that distinguishable voice. Um, and he himself just seems like an awesome dude, and I just love his character. Giles is the guy that's like not really the antagonist, but the one questioning McCready the most of like, why do you want to do that, bro? Hmm? Like he's the only one that seems to try to be like, maybe you're the thing, and you're just fucking with us.
Yeah, he's antagonistic for for himself. It very quickly becomes every man for himself, and he's doing what he's got to do to save himself in this situation. And once they do clear things up, he's very much like, "Yep, you're human. Take a flamethrower," and they're cool.
Yeah,
Um, I want to give props to David Glennon who played Palmer. Uh, Palmer's my favorite character in this movie because he's he doesn't fucking care. Like he's just such a sarcastic nihilist And by the time this rolls around, he's just like, yeah, you know what? The alien might as well fucking kill me. He doesn't
Yeah,
seem to
right.
care.
Well, this is my life now.
Yeah. Just yeah, he's the guy who utters, you got to be fucking kidding. He can't believe this is his life now, but he also is like, fuck it. Take the plane down. I don't care.
Oh yeah, no, he's great. Another guy I want to give a shout out to as well, and he's the one that made the speech on the couch to get me off the Donald Moffat, I think is how you say his last name, as essentially the kind of one that's in charge of the whole station. Gary, he's great as the guy that's like, if you notice, he's really quick to be able to use that gun. Like he does what's necessary to make sure they're all safe. But he's also, I like, he's one of the quickest to realize I may not be the one to be in charge of this. Someone else needs to. In that one scene, like he is very cognizant of that. Again, kind of signs of like the guy's actually a pretty solid leader. Like, hey, look, I may not be the one to do this right now. Someone else needs to take this gun from me, and someone else needs to lead. It can't be me. He's very cognizant enough to relinquish that. And then obviously, yeah, he has that great moment on the couch where he's like, now that we know it's not me, get me off the fucking couch. And also he's just his reaction when it's kind of like to me, I'm just like dark humor that may or may not have been intentional. But when he's like freaking out when the Knowles thing is happening and he's just like, oh, like just losing it, it's kind of funny.
Dude, in that bit where it's, revealed that Palmer's the thing and he just starts like shaking as he starts mutating and all the other guys on the couch are like, like get us out of here. It's weirdly funny. It's so outlandish you can't help but laugh. It's like Jesus Christ. They're
Yeah,
next to a shape-shifting alien that's gonna kill them as soon as it gets loose. Like
yeah, and they can't get loose. And I love you can hear Charles, cut me out, cut us out of here.
my favorite part of that whole thing is McCready with the flamethrower like not turning on, and he just keeps like trying. He's not doing anything to help them out. He's just like, come on, come on, come on, come on, just trying with the damn flamethrower. God. Well, we're gonna all right with that. Let's just go straight to scene. Let's talk about the blood test.
Yeah, let's talk about let's knock that one out. There's other scenes I want to talk about. Let's knock that one out real
Yeah.
quick.
Uh, so Carpenter he kind of breaks the rules with this scene. You know, Garris brought it up in the interview. It's supposed to happen. Things happen in threes. You're expecting the third guy to be the thing. You weren't even thinking about it being the second guy. Didn't even come into your mind because you know how things are supposed to unfold. And then when I love how it's completely nonchalant. You were the only guy who could have got to that blood. We'll do you last. And then, and it just is like everyone freaks the fuck out because it's so out of nowhere and perfectly done. Oh,
Yeah, it breaks the rules of threes, like Gareth said, but also there's no musical thing. There's not this slow, nowadays studios can't fucking help themselves. So it'd be a build up, build. And I'm saying this because I also, in my pursuit of our, upcoming episode, sat through the fucking Nun too, and god damn it, I hate the Nun movies. Um, but they can't help themselves, right? They have to like stop the music, right? They build it up, and they stop it because now they're like, okay, prime them for the jump scare. And it's like, well, now I know it's coming, and if I jump, it's not because I'm scared, it's because it's just a loud noise that got me.
no.
It didn't actually scare me. It's a cheap fucking effect. Not here, like you said, break the rule of threes. He makes a comment and then does it, and then it just fucking happens completely legitimately, as James Wan would say with his own jump scares, an earned jump scare. It wasn't cheap. He earned that shit.
Yeah.
You don't see it coming. It legitimately gets you the first time if you don't know what's going to happen, especially if you're like this film loaf that's like, well, I know what's going on. It's gonna be the third one because we'll go three, and that's how they're going. I know what they're doing, and then they fucking break it. But again, you got to know the rules to break them. That's the beauty. At that point, Carpenter knew the rules to break them to make sure he got you on that scene.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, on all the countdowns, like this was in the 40s or 50s on Bravo's 100 Scariest Movie Moments. And that scene was the scene. And it should have been way higher. I'm glad I was happy with its placement on the Shutter countdown. Like top 10 deserved to be there. But
That's I think it was top 10 on Shutter. Yeah.
it was like number 3. Like it was like top 5.
Yeah.
Uh, and in that scene, it was the clear, which is my other favorite scene of the movie.
Mhm.
Uh, but yeah, that blood test is just so unpredictable. I love. I got to show this movie to my cousin Ryan. Uh, he'd never seen it before. We did a double feature of The Thing and The Fly, which was a fun day. And when that scene came on, like Ryan's a pretty stoic guy, doesn't really, react to things, but I swear I saw him kind of jump a little bit with the blood test. I was very happy to see that.
Oh yeah, actually you don't get going. Another thing I like about that is like we're talking about the dark humor, but I like when like Kurt Russell is like Windows flamethrower because they got the other one and he gets ready to go do it and then he fucking freezes up and you can hear him be like, "What are you doing?" And then Windows gets a hell of a fucking death and it.
Ugh. Yeah. And then as soon as they kill all the monsters, they immediately resume the blood test. This
Yeah, I
time,
like how they go right back to it and no one's untied.
well, all they confirmed was Palmer's the Thing. They didn't confirm that the rest of those other two guys aren't. But
Yeah,
I love that now McCready's holding it out a little farther. Great touch.
doesn't want to do that again.
Ooh, that was
Also,
right in his fucking
also
face.
Yeah, I also feel like that scene was a nice little homage to the original because they have the scene where they fucking flamethrower it finally and it busts out the door or the wall, not the door,
Yeah,
but the wall.
that
And
was
so now I'm
definitely
like,
a
ooh, I
nod
wonder if that's a nice homage.
for sure. Which made it feel, I'm glad I watched that. Made it feel a little bit more like, oh, that's a tip of the hat, wagging the finger. Feels good.
Yeah.
Um, so apart from the blood test, what are some other scenes that you love in the thing?
I say let's get the other big one out of the way. The fucking stomach opening one, because I think that was like this a scene I saw in context like years ago when I first like was heard about this movie. I was like, the hell? And yeah, dude, again, just a perfect scene. And Carpenter kind of breaking the rules a little bit there too, if you think about it. Because there's again no fucking dumbass music to prime you, like, okay, we're getting ready to scare you. It's a already intense scene. The guy has died of a heart attack. After McCree, you kind of get things kind of like slightly snapped because he's holding the dynamite. He, he's like, I'm gonna blow it up if you guys come near me. And I'm like, Jesus Christ. Um, he even lights it. You see it lit. Like it's like, okay, we need to take it down a notch. Um, but paranoia really makes you do dangerous, like crazy things. But you have seen where the guy dies heart attack. They finally but it's still kind of a tense scene already. So like we have to get them back. They're doing their thing. And again, there's no music building up to this. You just 1 minute they're doing it, everything's normal. You're thinking it's probably not him because he died. And then next thing you know, you see it go down and you see the stomach open, the hands keep going. You're like, holy shit. And things obviously just rack it up for everyone. Everyone's just like, oh, what the fuck? And they have to, they managed to flame that one up, but then they never see the head part come up. And then it birthed that, the iconic line of you gotta be fucking kidding me when they all turn around thinking they're done, and now you got a fucking head with spider legs crawling away.
Uh, yeah, it's out of nowhere and makes you wonder, like, if nobody suspected Norris, so like, why did he bring attention to himself with a heart attack? Like, I wonder, like, it was that like when the thing takes you over, does it take you over, or are you still in there? And was that Norris reacting to the thing's possession of him?
I wonder if it could be that. I mean, it could be like maybe if you have pre-existing health conditions, it doesn't account for that. You know what I mean?
Warning:
The
consult
thing
your
can't
doctor
account for
before
that.
ingesting the thing.
Yeah.
I love if like internally the thing's like, hey, do you have a heart condition? Because you need to tell me if you have a heart condition.
Yeah, because I'm not going to survive in this body long if you die.
Yeah, it's freakish and so well designed by Bottin and his team. They almost killed everybody with that sequence.
Mhm.
When the thing when the head's pulling off and like all that green shit, which the green shit freaks me out more than anything. I don't know why. Uh,
Especially the little like bubble pus thing, the pus bubbles or whatever.
yeah. That was like, you know, what, like melted plastic and like some toxic paint that apparently was very flammable. And when they lit up the fire in the background, the whole damn thing exploded, and they had to extinguish that and go again because the prop was gone.
Yeah, because apparently I guess they said they actually had like a leak and like they said they smelt something, but they were like, "Oh, it's nothing."
Yeah,
And then they lit
they lit a
it and
fire
it's all
rod in a
fine.
room full of toxic fumes, and they were surprised that something happened.
I like how Botine said he kind of stood there first because he was in disbelief of what was happening, and Carpenter was like, "Don't just stand there, stupid. Take it out."
Yeah, crazy. You know, they were doing shit no one had ever done before, so they didn't really know how this was gonna play out. But they used hydraulics, they used jello, they used plastic, they anything they had, and the end result
Lube,
speaks for itself.
lots of yeah,
Lube,
lots of lube.
yeah, they lubed up. Got to be ready to go. Uh, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, luckily everyone survived, and we get this great scene out of it.
yeah. All right, awesome. Let's talk about the dogs.
Oh,
Um,
oh boy.
that. Ooh. So to start, kind of the horror section of this movie, off with literally like torturing a bunch of huskies. That's gonna upset people. And a lot of the letterbox reviews I read that didn't like this movie were like, "Why did all the dogs have to die? Half a star." And you fucking babies, but still, I get it.
Look, look, I get it when it comes to like children and animals and films. I myself, I know you have your cat.
I
I
do.
myself have my cat and my dog. I don't like seeing it, but I'm not gonna dislike a movie because of fucking animal dog. Especially because guess what? It's not Cannibal Holocaust. It's fake.
Yeah, fake dog.
The actual, yeah, fake dogs were killed. Real dogs survived and went back to their owners to live happy lives.
But what a way to bring this monster home and show us what this thing is. I mean, to have its
Oh,
husky head rip open and start pulling other dogs in with its fucking tendrils. Oh my God.
oh yeah. I did legitimately feel bad. I was like, oh, those poor dogs. Oh no.
Yeah.
And
Ugh. God.
God, and yeah, dude, the look of it when like they go to see what's all the ruckus is about with the dogs, and you just see that thing for what it is, and you're like, oh my God. And I love their disbelief of just like, what the hell are we looking at right now?
Yeah. They just start shooting at it as you would. And they start shooting the dogs. And that one guy, Clark, is like, no, I felt bad for him. He's like, my dogs. Like,
So all he had was his dogs.
yeah. Jesus. And
The
again,
only non
yeah.
the only one that was not a thing that died by one of our characters because he gets shot by McCready real quick.
Well, now it's like the dogs are infected and they got to kill the dogs. So that way, if they see any dogs running around, they know it's a monster.
Yeah.
I would,
As far as I'm concerned, take the dogs out. And plus, the dogs Kurt Russell shot were clearly needed to be put out of their unfortunate misery because they were entangled in whatever the fuck that thing was.
the kindness. Also, Jed, you good boy. Well done. The whole beginning part when you're just kind of skulking around the camp, just kind of looking around, seeing what's what. It's it's a good performance from that dog.
It
It
is, especially when they had to talk about how they had to get that out of the dog
mhm.
and what they had to do to get that because obviously it's a dog. It likes people as well trained as it is.
I'm thinking about the 2020 Call of the Wild with Harrison Ford, where he has a dog buddy, and the dog buddy is a CGI nightmare the whole time. Like, just take the effort to train a fucking dog, and you're gonna get a better movie.
Yeah, it's not hard. Why do you think cops have a K9 unit? Because German Shepherds are very easy to train.
Yeah.
Dogs are easy to train if you work with them.
Yep. Oh, I love the ending where they stumble onto the thing's spaceship that he's been building the whole movie because Blair was a thing probably from the start. And
Oh yeah, absolutely.
yeah, dude, when he like digs his fingers into Gary's face,
Oh yeah, Gary got it rough.
oh God, Ah,
I like how it because there's a good chance he was the thing the whole time. That scene when he was like trying to convince him to go back to the camp. Hey, come on, McCready. I feel better now. I really want to go back with you guys. I'm like, was that Blair or was that the thing trying to go back to like help assimilate more?
it's so stunted. It feels like the thing trying to mimic human emotion, but it can't quite do it. 'Cause it does feel like, hey, I'm cold
Mhm.
and I want to come back inside. Like it could just be an emotionless doctor, kind of coping, but it could also be just the thing doesn't know how to appeal with empathy.
Yeah. It again, the movie is just so well crafted that you start to upon a rewatch, you question like almost all of the scenes. They're like, is that actually the person? Or was that the thing mimicking a person?
I don't know. I mean, they could be all infected from the start. It just,
Yeah,
maybe, yeah, maybe the thing doesn't react to blood. It just chose that moment just, to fuck with them.
yeah, it's fucking crazy. Oh, one thing I want to highlight that I like thinking of the thing and infecting people when they have to kill Bennings. That scene has always been a favorite of mine when like they go out there, they see him running, and they go out there, and before you see his hands, you see him look, and you know immediately with by his like the very dead eyes he has that it's not him anymore. What's crazy is you kind of get a hint of like this thing has to take time to transform into someone because when you see it makes this noise, it can't even do his voice yet. It's just its alien voice, and then you see its hands, and it's still working on making the hands human. Oh God! And the way Kurt Russell just like calmly tips over the canister of gasoline and tosses the flare there to burn him.
Yeah. Yeah, that was vicious. That was creepy. Props to the guy who plays Bennings. His name escapes me at the moment, but he really sold it in that moment. Like I believe that was not Bennings.
Yeah. Oh my God! And then that inhuman scream it does as it's like at them. Oh. I've that scene has always stuck out to me. It's just like, holy shit, what are they dealing with?
Scene that always creeped me out was it was the subtlety of it. It's when the I think it was Richard Dysart or it might have been Blair was looking at the like the cells and how it was replicating human cells and he was learning about it and he did like a simulation and it's like total human population infected in like 48 hours and it was like Jesus Christ, just the implications of all that and the music and just realizing like this thing's
Mhm.
apocalyptic. Like that was
Yeah,
terrifying.
yeah. Like if this thing leaves this fucking island essentially, because Antarctica is essentially an island, um, the human race is fucked.
Yeah, we can't fight this. We can't fight something that can infect all organic life it touches. Like this is it. Ooh,
Yeah. It. Oh God. I think I had. Oh yeah, and then I've towards the end I've always enjoyed the little showdown we get with McCready and the thing, especially his line when it like screams at him, he goes, "Yeah, fuck you too," and tosses the dynamite at it.
ah, yeah, that's great. Although it did seem like all it wanted to do was leave. Like in the prequel, it like tries to get back in the spaceship and start that up, and this one it tried to build its own spaceship and get out. Like I feel like it just wanted to leave Earth. Maybe they should have just let it do that.
Maybe. But then the question is, would it have brought more? You know what I mean? Like,
Mm.
oh, now that I know about this planet, we have a planet we can sustain ourselves on.
I always got the feeling that this wasn't a life form. It was a like a almost like a weapon of mass destruction, like created by some race to like destroy a planet overnight.
Yeah. There's a lot of really cool theories around this. I did like, I think even Carter said he designed it as the idea of like it's something that is, and it's in the well, I mean it's in the movie. I think they actually mentioned in lines of dialogue. It's trying to get out. It's a to it, and it's in an alien war to it, and it's doing anything it can to survive.
Yeah, it's the ultimate evolutionary killer.
Yeah, and I think that was a smart way to go about it. Because they talk about in the bonus, they had some deaths they cut or redid that they were like, this thing isn't going out just straight up killing people to kill people. It is trying to survive. This isn't like the alien, it's not the alien, right?
Mhm.
It's trying to survive. It's doing whatever it can, and when it feels threatened, yes, it's going to kill you. But if it doesn't, it's just going to try to escape unnoticed.
Yeah. Its priority is survival above all else. Like, yeah, it's frightening. Uh,
Yeah.
well, I think that's a good place to move on. Um, let's take a look at what the people of Letterboxd have to say about this movie on our final segment, What's in the Box?
What's in the fucking box? Give me the gun.
The Thing is, I believe, the highest rated film on or highest rated horror film on Letterboxd with a 4.4 out of 5. Whew,
That's high praise.
that is very high praise. It's a solid 5 out of 5 for me. I hope that goes without saying.
Yeah, but I'm sure there's some before it'd be a 4.4. That means there's some contrarians out there.
Oh yeah, I have 5 reviews, all half a star.
Jesus Christ.
Oh yeah. This first one's from Commander Ty. The Thing is a terrible movie that should never have been made, and I give it a 1 out of 100. It's awful. Everything about it is awful. Even the title. There are no redeeming qualities in this movie whatsoever, and it is a stain on the history of cinema. Jesus Christ.
Tell me how you really feel without actually giving me solid reasons on how you feel that way.
Yeah, I'm not hearing any like what's so irredeemable about it? What's so awful about it? I feel like this screams contrarian. Like everyone loves it, so I have to hate it or I'm not the smartest guy in the room.
Yeah, you're contrarian or like that guy that gets really offended by stuff easily. Like he got offended by the shocking amount of violence in this movie and was like, how dare they? One
Yeah,
of the two.
ugh, both of those people can go fuck themselves. This one's from Louis 38. The film that made me realize I hated alien films. I think I could fart out a more scintillating film. Why on God's green earth did I watch a German Shepherd explode? Sorry. That's a that's an interesting sentence. Why was I actually happy when the base blew up and more of the cast were killed off? Antarctica's tourism board should sue because they made it look as interesting as being locked in a telephone box with someone who loves Shoreditch House too much, aka dull, 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 dull. Not even a Johnny Polar Bear cameo could save this snooze fest. All right, I don't know who Johnny Polar Bear is. I don't know if that is a
I
reference to something.
I have two things I'd like to say.
Yeah.
One, he doesn't know his dog breeds. They're not German Shepherds. I have a one that's mixed with lab, so I think I'm a little bit of an authority on this one.
Hmm.
Um, these are Huskies and in some cases Malamutes. Breeds are actually designed to withstand those kind of conditions. In case you want any history there, dumbass letterbox man. Or gal, 2024. How you identify is how you identify.
Yeah.
Um, the other thing, how much tourism do you think is happening in Antarctica? Like I said at the top of this show, the only people going there are literally the type you see in this movie, scientists that are stationed there to do fucking science shit, to do research. That's it.
I I love that this guy thinks that like you can price line a Antarctic Circle trip.
Yeah. There's a reason Metallica is the only band that's played there for that weird gimmick they decided to do.
Well, there's your tourism board thing, home of Metallica or something. Uh,
Yeah.
that's
I don't know
crazy.
if you remember that when they played there, so they could say they played all seven continents. I was like, no one cares if you played in Antarctica, Metallica. No one gives a shit. Um,
Metallarctica. Uh,
Antarctica, right? Yeah, that's all I got for that. Like he gets the breed of the dog wrong. So how much do you really like dogs, buddy? Couldn't even get the breed right. And yeah, you're not booking fucking flights to Antarctica. It's not a tourism area.
that's that's yeah, this guy's insane. This one had me laughing so hard. This is from Christopher Nolan Simp. So one of your favorite.
You You picked this on purpose, you fucking bastard.
I actually didn't look at the name till just now. I picked this because of the content, but the name just icing on the cake. So no, I didn't.
Son of a bitch.
I
I
can't
already
believe
know everything I need to about this guy with that title, so please fucking continue with this
I
douchebag.
I can't believe they ripped off Dead Space. John Carpenter is an unoriginal, untalented hack. And my favorite part of this is the comment that was left behind, which is, I didn't know John Carpenter had a time machine.
Oh god, thank you. Someone commented with that. Oh my.
I hope this guy's
Well,
trolling. I hope he's trolling because if not, he's one of the stupidest human beings on the planet.
yes, because look, hey, I have authority on this too because I've actually played all three of the Dead Space games, and I played some of the remake, haha, which was really, really good. It was just more like time, so I didn't finish it not because I was hating it. It's a fucking great remake. Time was the issue.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, one Dead Space originally came out in 2008 and was actually, yes, heavily inspired by John Carpenter. The guys who made the game very much talked about that John Carpenter influence when they were making the game. So that was there. But they also talked about things like Event Horizon and Alien, other actual movies of aliens in fucking space. Because the first game's in fucking space on a spaceship.
Oh, it also
They
came out
they
20
didn't
years after the movie. That's the big.
Yeah, that's the big one. But also, again, if we're going to play fucking can't get my ears right, I'm going to play semantics on you, asshole. It wasn't until Dead Space 3 that they actually went to a frozen tundra of a planet. And that was one they were heavily inspired by John Carpenter's thing. But also, guess what? That's also when the series went dormant because people fucking hated Dead Space 3 because that's when the horror went away in favor of like action shit, and then the series went dormant until the recent remake came out and brought it back in full force. So yeah, one, get your shit, like, dude, like this film came out well before the Dead Space games. And actually, let's bring this shit full circle. Guess who, if he could direct a film again, if he was interested in directing a film again, guess what film he'd like to do, Mr. John Carpenter? A Dead Space movie, because he's a massive fan of the Dead Space games. He has talked about that ad nauseum, how much he loves the Dead Space games. He thinks they're like some of the greatest video games we've gotten in the horror realm. So bringing that full circle, dumbass, not you, the letterbox guy.
I'm well aware. You're not. Yeah, I know.
Yeah. So one, get your years when things come out right, stupid, and also like pick the right game. Say Dead Space 3. Be somewhat smart.
It blows my mind when people do that. They like, call something a ripoff of something that came out decades after that first thing. That's so
Yeah.
amazingly stupid.
Yeah, like how? And then you get the wrong semantics on this one. The wrong game in that franchise mentioned.
No.
And then the found out Carpenter himself is a huge fan of those games now. He loves those games.
Well, unless it's Christopher Nolan, this dude will suck no other director's nuts. So I get
Apparently. So I know he liked the boring shit show that was Dunkirk and probably can tell you why Tenet's a piece of art.
Dunkirk was pretty good. That's kind of just you.
I know. I that movie's boring.
I enjoyed Dunkirk.
It is fucking boring.
I didn't really like Tenet that much. Okay. This one's from Jade.
I know a lot of even those hardcore fans didn't like that one that much. I didn't bother to watch it, but I haven't heard good things from almost like anyone. Maybe the simp there does like it though.
I didn't look at his reviews, but I bet they're all there's Nolan movies being like the greatest thing ever. Oh my God. Um, it's from Jade. I made it 29 minutes in. There were no women and a bad dog. This movie is Satan's work. Ooh, now we're talking.
People don't make sense. You're posting a review after you didn't finish the movie. You still had like a whole hour and 20 to go. Um, so you didn't finish the movie. You stopped because there was no women in it, which is a shallow thing too. They didn't at that time send female scientists over there, I believe. It's kind of like how for the longest time, Navy ships were all male until they finally started letting, females join. It's kind of like the boys club.
One real quick, one thing I did forget to mention. There is a female in this movie. It's the chess computer. Do you know who voices the chess computer?
No. Oh
Adrian
wait, is
Bar
it Jamie?
Adrian
Oh,
Barbeau.
oh, nice.
Yeah, who was Carpenter's wife at the time. So fuck
That's right.
you,
That's right. They
Jade.
were married. Yeah, there is a woman. Yeah, one shallow reason too. I want to say accurate for that time when they were sending people like scientists over there to do stuff in Antarctica. Um, I'm sure it was. I'm sure back then it was primarily a boys' club. I'm sure. Um, and yeah, Jesus Christ. Main thing is like finish the movie before you fucking review it. You, God, you pieces of shits that do that.
Satan.
Yeah, and say what? No women, so say what?
Every movie that has no women and a bad dog was sent here by the devil. I mean, that's just common knowledge. We all know that.
Apparently.
Ah, Jade, I bet you're fun at parties. Uh, and this last one, just I get it, but also no. All right. This is from Cool Person 13, and I guarantee you, no, you're not.
I doubt he is. If you have to call yourself that for your handle, you're not.
3 words. Way too scary. Half a star.
That's not very cool of you.
Also, that's the point. It's a horror movie. If you got scared, that means it's doing it right. Half a star because
Yeah.
you can't handle this movie. That's kind of that's low.
Yeah. Also, if this is the thing that you think is way too scary, stop watching horror films.
Yeah, I don't get that. I don't get people who attack horror films for being too scary, but they keep going. Like if it's not for you, stay out. Go home, find another nightclub for you that could handle. If this was SpongeBob, go to Weenie Hut Juniors. That's where you belong.
Those Super Weenie Hut Juniors.
Oh,
I'm gonna go to Weenie Hut. They don't want you there. Go to Super Weenie Hut.
you
Look,
can't
if
you can't hang at the salty spittoon with the rest of us. You can't.
no, you know what? Go to Weenie Hut Junior. If you watch a horror film, then you found, yeah, this isn't for me. I got scared. Because at least you have some fucking self-respect to be like, no, I'm not going to keep watching these. They scare me. Then go to Weenie Huts. I can respect you on that. Go to Super Weenie Hut if you are that person that knows you're scared, but you keep going back to them and complaining that you
That's
got scared.
that's the part. Complaining. If you keep watching horror films and you're super scared by them, but you keep trying to because you want to, you want to play, go nuts. Keep doing that. But when you start bitching about the fact that they're too scary, then you're going to alienate people, and we don't want to talk to you.
Yeah, like look, if I know plenty of people, and me being on the dating apps, I've talked to someone that like I've matched with, right, and they're like, "Oh, I see you're really into scary movies." I'm like, "Yeah, I am a big scary movie buff." I usually joke like tattoos not tell, say enough, a little joke, right? Um, and they'll say it. They'll be like, "Hey, I'm kind of scared of them, but I have no issues watching them with some of them." Also, I'm like, I'm not gonna be that guy's like, "Huh, they're not for me because you can't handle scary movie." Like you said, like there's plenty of people that like if they are scared, they'll find ways to watch it. And like I said, it's the complaining part that's like then stop watching it. But if you can find ways, like I said, like some people, hey, I can't do it alone, but I can watch a scary movie with someone. Fine, cool. Then have a buddy to watch it with, have a date to watch it with, right? I know some people that like, hey, I can watch them, but also I can't do it if I know I'm going to be alone at the house at night, right? You see that with some couples. Okay, cool. You know how to approach watching them then, and when not to fucking watch. Again, that's being an adult. That's being smart.
I
It's when you do it and like we said, you complain. Then it's like, all right, shut the hell up. We don't want you.
I don't get people who like try to minimize the chances they're going to get scared. If I'm going to watch a horror movie, especially something I've never seen before, I'm watching it at night. I'm, turning off the lights. I'm trying to
Bro, I did the same thing.
increase the chances that you're going to feel something from this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do it all the time. That's how, I found out the Outwaters really affected me from this past year because I was like, all right, let me do what I do. I'd wait till night, I'd turn all the lights off, I'd minus the LED backlights I have for my TV. And I actually think I picked a day that like Josh was like saying scared, so I had to place it myself as well. Um, and I watched it, and yeah, I knew that should affect me when I was quick to turn lights on. I was like, all right, turn some lights on. Fuck, I was like, what the hell did I just watch? What the hell's going on?
The last time I had to do that was when I watched Anything for Jackson. That scene with the giant ghost really
Oh
got under my
yeah,
skin. Trick or treat. Goddamn. Woo.
oh yeah. I was gonna say, look, the moral lesson is, and I'm sure you feel the same way. Not everyone's a massive horror fan. Like I understand, not everyone's like me that has fucking tattoos, t-shirts, board games, fucking energy drinks, like that lives and breathes it quite like I do. Or like yourself that loves, really enjoys these too. So if you're going to get scared, but keep watching these, and then like we said, complain, get the fuck out. I don't want to deal with you. But if you know if you at least recognize, hey, these scare me, but I have ways to watch it to make it less so that I can handle it, cool with that. If that's watching it with a friend, watching it with someone, maybe having like a nightlight or something at the very least, or like LED backlights on your TV or something, then that's cool. I'm not going to judge you for that. You're trying to still watch these things and not deny yourself that, but you're also recognizing being an adult and recognizing like, hey, I know if I do it this way, I'm gonna be scared shitless. I won't be able to go to bed afterwards. Cool. Like you're finding a way to still enjoy this without bitching, without complaining and being that person.
The complainer, it's like it's like somebody who can't handle spicy food. And they're aware of this, but they keep coming with you to B-dubs and ordering the hottest shit on the menu and then complaining that the stuff they're ordering is too hot. Like, you know what you can handle, get mild, or leave me alone.
Yeah. I'm not look, I gotta be I'll tell you right now, I get the mild shit. Why? Because I know I don't want to gorge on the hot shit because I can only take so much from like I'm done. I'm not gonna finish this.
But even if you do order the hot stuff, you did that. It's nobody else's fault.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, how you react tells me how much I'm gonna deal with you because we're adults here. Let's act like it. Okay.
Yes. Yes, God damn it. We're adults. Accountability is the name of the fucking game. Now,
Yeah.
I think that's a good place to wrap things up. Uh, that's our show. Thanks for listening, everybody. If you like what we do, feel free to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and X at Filmgazm Productions.
Twitter. Twitter.
If you want to, the website formerly known as Twitter. If you want to suggest films for us to check out,
Fuck you, Elon Musk. It's Twitter.
you can email us at filmgasm@gmail.com or send us a message through the socials. That's Facebook, Instagram, or X.
Twitter.
Check, check out our check out our Letterboxd accounts for daily reviews. You can search for me at Connor95. In my friends list, you can find the rest of the team. Check out our website, filmgasm.com, where I have a link to that letterbox. If you want to read reviews, you can also find articles, trailers of upcoming films, and every episode of every phase of our show. If you'd like to become a monthly donor to Filmgazm Productions, feel free to click on the link in the episode description. From there, click on support this podcast. You can choose to donate $1 a month, $5 a month, or $10 a month. All donations go right back into the show, and we appreciate it. Thanks to the entire Filmgazm team for their contributions. Thanks to Cooley Cow for our awesome theme music, and thanks to you for sticking it out this far. I recently calculated all the shit we've ever done. If you count from day one of the podcast to now, this is the 668th episode of the show. How
Episode
fucking
1.
beautiful is that?
Yeah, that's nice. But also episode 1 of the revamp, of the reboot, of the reimagining, of the retooling of the show.
Yeah, part 5. That's right. Episode 1.
The
And
final chapter.
probably I don't see us changing face again. I think this is it. We're gonna just see this through till we all get tired of it.
Filmgasm Reborn.
There you go. Next week, I'm making good on a promise I made back in November. Now that the bride has crossed Oren Ishii and Vernita Green off her list, she takes on the sadistic Elle Driver and the lonely shit kicker Bud, all culminating in her long-awaited confrontation with the man who took everything from her, Bill. We go back into the ultra-violent world of Quentin Tarantino with 2004's Kill Bill Volume 2. If you want to hear our thoughts on the first volume, check out the episode we did on it this past November. Tune in next week for a deep dive on the second volume. Super excited. When we did Kill Bill 1, felt incomplete. Like we only did half the movie because we did. So we're going to rectify that, knock out Kill Bill 2 next week. Talk more Tarantino, Uma Thurman, David Carradine. It's going to be fun. I'm super excited for the future of this podcast, and I'm looking forward to all the awesome films we've got on the calendar. Take it easy. Keep watching movies. We'll see you next time.